Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 25. In this episode, I speak with my great friend and Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 25. In this episode, I speak to my great friend and my first returning guest to the podcast, Ford Fanter. Ford, as many of you know, is a super incredible human being. He's beyond talented, an endless ball of creativity. He's a musician, actor, writer, poet, performer. You name it, he does it. He's incredible. But most importantly, Ford is just one of the kindest, humblest, sweetest human beings I know, and I'm very grateful to call him a friend. And we actually recorded this on Christmas night. So it was actually fitting. Him and I were both available to do this, and I wouldn't have spent it any other way. It was amazing. And the book of the episode is actually Ford's book that he wrote called Moth. Poetry and Prose by Ford Fanter. It's an incredible body of work, to say the least. I read it when it first came out, totally blew me away. I read it again today before the podcast, blew me away even more. As just some certain life circumstances he talked about related to me really well right now. And it is a true treat. If you really want to get a feel for the human experience and just get an insight to vulnerability, honesty, someone's fears, someone's aspirations, someone's just everything, their dreams, pick up Moth. Poetry and Prose by Ford Fanter. And we talk about the book in this conversation. We talk about a lot of things. This is actually the longest episode I've ever done. And it's only fitting that it would be with Ford Fanter. Many depths of humanity were covered tonight. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Ford. Ford Fanter, welcome again to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Oh man, I'm so happy to be back. We got a lot to catch up on.
I'm just so happy you're here and just you hit me with this with your background, and it's just groovy. It's creative. It's musical. You are truly in your element, my friend. The mad scientist reveals his laboratory.
Yes, this is definitely the laboratory. I've been holed up in here for the last couple of days now, just feverishly working, and I love it. I love my cozy little creative space. So,
you making music, or what you working on?
I'm writing some stuff. I'm pulling out the one-man show again and dusting that off and rewriting that. And I'm my approach is very, taking the gloves off and doing it different than I've done in the past, where I'm trying really hard to find an idea or hone in on an idea and just execute that. I'm allowing myself to write as much as will come out. And I think it's in the past there was this fear if I have to write what's correct first, which is silly because when you do any levels of drafts, when you think about just writing something in general, there's always a first draft, but almost the mentality that I don't want to waste energy on a subject that I might change later. So I have to know what the subjects are and then write about them. And then I'll edit what I write about, whereas I'm just kind of writing whatever comes out and just cranking out as much as possible. And then just trusting that I can write something, write a piece for the show and then decide the next day, oh, this piece is great. This piece is so good, but it doesn't work for the show. So I'm going to just get rid of it and just trusting myself to just write something. And if it doesn't, trust what comes out. And then if what comes out doesn't end up being integral to what I'm trying to say, because I'm still finding what I'm trying to say. So if it's not integral to that, I'll just throw it out and trust that I'm not throwing out gold. I'm just, if it comes out and it's gold and I decide, well, it still doesn't work, that's still encouraging because if your first draft is really good, then by plugging forward, because I think that it's easy to feel like you're not making any progress if everything that you're making is, and I think that's why a lot of people don't even start on ideas or give up on ideas. That's what's happened to me a lot of times. You give up on an idea because you've done all this work and it's still not working, or it's just like, I just want to throw everything out. But I'm just trusting that even if I toss out everything and have to start it from scratch, that I can do that I can still finish it and make it as good as I want it to be, or say what I want to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, it made me realize, do you view like what you do with your one-man show kind of like the same strategy of a comedian? Because like comedians will write their material, then they'll go test it out multiple places and they'll see what sticks, what doesn't. Is that kind of how it is with this one-man show? Is it the same type? You see what type of response it gets, or how does that?
Maybe a little bit, not so much now with the angle that I'm taking at it. I think I will. Originally, it started with me having all these little individual pieces and deciding to start taking them to open mics and doing them in front of people and getting good responses to them, and then realizing like, well, I'd love to turn these all into one cohesive thing, tie them all together. I think that's mostly where the fear comes from, or the writer's block anxiety comes from, is that sacredness of these pieces that I've taken them on stage and they've done really well, and I know them in and out by heart. And there's this fear that, well, if I chop them up now, like they're so good, they're so solidified, they're a staple of what I do. If I go in and try and put them in this show and they're not working, but they're such good pieces, I'll have to either destroy them by trying to make them fit into the show and chopping them up, or I'll have to not use them altogether, and that sucks. But I'm allowing for that to not happen this time, and trust, like, if I have to destroy everything I've ever made, take it all, to do surgery on everything that I think is good, then I'm willing to do that. But I have kind of a very clear vision of what I'm trying to do, and what I guess really the feeling I want the audience to have when they watch this and then when they leave. I know what that is. And so I'm trusting that I just have to sit down and hunker down, because I know when I have written a piece and then I read it in my space alone to myself and really get into the energy behind what I'm creating, I'm like, this is going to be powerful. This is going to be effective. And I don't think I'll take it out and test it out so much on audiences. I'll probably introduce the work to a select number of people whose opinion I trust, get their opinion of it, and work from there. I want to keep it kind of close to the chest, but the thing is not just the individual pieces, but how they tie in together. And I can't do that unless I just do the whole show.
Right.
So I know a lot of these pieces that I'm working with are really good because I've gotten a lot of great response and feedback. It's now trying to, the pieces are thoughts. They're chunks of my worldview. So the show itself is a shorthand version of what my current worldview is, or ideas, the main concentration of ideas that I'm thinking about. So, they all have to kind of tie together in that way and articulate what it is that I really want to articulate. So one piece individually doing well in front of an audience by itself is one thing, but if it doesn't dance and weave with the other pieces, then I've got an issue, and I have to work out that issue, if that makes sense. Yeah, I lost my train of thought halfway through that thought. I was like,
no, it makes sense. This is a pure, like, that's why I love having you on, because it's just like our phone conversation. It's just gonna be a fucking wide open flow. And it's not that some of these pieces you're saying may not, it's not that they're not good, but does it fit the one person show that you're trying to do? Maybe it's good, but it won't fit for this show, so you may put it in something else down the line.
Yeah. The weird thing is, as I'm working on the show, very much like it was with my book, but maybe even more so with this show, that like the show started because me writing the show started because I had all these good pieces. But as I'm going through it, my idea of the show changes. And that's the thing. It's like a complex math problem. And you have to plug things in. But the more you plug things in over here, the more this starts to teeter and not be balanced. And it's like, well, I've refined this with new ideas, but here's an old piece. And it needs to be updated. And then I'm realizing, well, maybe this piece shouldn't be in here at all, because now I'm finding a completely new direction. And I'm like wondering, is this show even, is it going to end up being, put up in 2022 with only pieces that were written in 2022? Am I going to end up just like phasing out all the new stuff? But that's like, it's like molting and growing a new skin and like shedding off the pieces where it's like, and that's sort of the freedom. That's, I think, kind of what I was trying to articulate earlier. It's like I'm allowing myself to not hold on to these older pieces and say, well, these older pieces are part of the reason why I started doing the show. So I have to find a way to work them in. If I find that what I'm really trying to say could be better said without using those pieces that are the 45 magnums of my arsenal, then so be it. I have to do what ultimately serves the whole goal of the thing. And I trust myself. I know I can write good work, and I know that I can take an idea and even though it may feel sacred to me because it's a piece that's done really well and means a lot to me, I can chop it up and say, well, maybe I don't even need all of this piece. I can just take the pieces of it that I do need, and that I'll eventually make something that's even better. But I have to trust myself that nothing is sacred. None of my work is sacred anymore. None of it is allowed to hold a place where I cannot chop it up and destroy it. I have to understand that the final draft has to be what the final draft has to be, even if it contains nothing that has been previously successful of my work. So it's an interesting and kind of stressful and confusing period that requires a lot of just trust and faith in myself. And just like, hey, you can do this. Just keep refining, keep trusting your gut, go in the direction that you know you need to go, and don't look back. Don't worry about looking back. There's something back there that's good. Go back to it, grab it, bring it with you. But like, don't worry, just forge ahead.
See, and that really speaks to me, brings up something we were talking about. We were talking about the book, The War of Art, the other day, by Stephen Pressfield, and just that resistance. And sometimes resistance comes in multiple forms, I feel. Sometimes you have created things, and I know exactly what you're talking about, where you came up with this idea, whether it was a song, a film, whatever it is, and you got the inception of it, but then you're kind of stuck on it, and then you don't really do anything with it, and you're like, well, I got to keep, but you made that, maybe that thing that you created leads you to another idea, like, well, maybe I'll do it like this, but then you're like, well, no, I had the idea when it was like that. So I don't, for anyone listening that's a creator, that made perfect sense to me, what you just said. And that's a discipline right there as an artist, for you to be able to just, all right, I just worked on this for this long. All right, wipe it clean, do it again.
Yeah. Oh man, it takes so much courage to do that, because it's the old adage of killing your darlings, which I have a very hard time doing. I have a hard time, like, I'm so purist in a way, or I have been a lot in the past, in ways that are not helpful. Nowadays, I used to record music just on my computer, and I never learned really like how to play. Like, I would never write full songs that I could play just on one instrument. It was all working within the digital audio workstation and building the song in the edit. Essentially, the production was the instrument, or the DAW was the instrument, and I would just use different instruments and play like something until it sounded good, and record it and finally get a good take of it recorded, then put it down and never play it again and forget how to play it. But, you know, it would be a great riff or a great chord progression that I would record in a song. And I recorded that song in like 2013. And here I am, you know, almost 10 years later, really writing a lot of music that I can just sit down and play on any guitar at any time. You know, the whole song just is right there on the guitar. And I'm writing a lot of music that way. And I may have, what I'm finally starting to do is like go back to those songs from 2013 and say, well, this song isn't sacred. I can take this chord progression that I really like. And, you know, in my mind, there's a little part of my mind that chimes in and goes, no, you're just recycling an old idea. You're not being original. You're recycling an old idea, and you have to be original. You always have to do something new. But then the part chimes into me is like, to anyone else who would come to one of my concerts, this song is new. They've never heard it before. You know, I could just say it's just not done. You know, I put it on the internet in 2013. I put it on Bandcamp, and it was part of this little shitty album that I self-produced and put online, you know. So in my mind, it's, well, that song's already written. It already exists, and I have to do something new. Where it's like, no, I can dig into that old arsenal and say, well, this song is not being listened to the way it is. I need to get it listened to. And honestly, one of the best songs that I have right now that I play is half of it I just took from one of my old songs. And it's consistently like the best song that I have in my repertoire of songs I've written. And it's because I was like, well, it's good, but it would be so much better if I took it back and reworked it again. And so I'm not afraid of doing that anymore, of augmenting my work or digging things out of the past and saying, time to redo it. It was always weird to me when I would hear an album, or I would see like an artist with multiple albums, and they would have either the same like a song that repeats, like a song that was on one of their first albums. You see it on the third album. I know DJ Shadow has, I think, What Does Your Soul Look Like is one of those songs that appears on 2 of his albums. One of the parts of of that song appears on 2 different albums. And that was always weird to me, because I was like, the purist in me has to be like, which album does this belong to? What era does this belong to? What part of you is this really loyal to? You know, is it this era of this person that you were that made this song, or was it this era? I need to know, because it's like, in a way, I think I look at what people create as the extension of themselves. It's how I learn like who you are. And I'm like, if someone's learning who I am through my work, I don't want them to get confused and be like, I don't know what, but that's absurd. It's just my way of thinking about things. But I don't know. It's totally insane, maybe.
I'm not. There's a couple of ways I can go with that, but I think the thing like that gets my curiosity as you're talking about the process and just seeing your work constantly of various realms. I mean, you have so many creative outlets that you're skilled in, and is it working like phases for you? Do you like go, you know what, I'm just going to work on music for now, or you know what, I'm just going to write for now, you know what, I'm going to just do acting for right now, or is it just you just go with what you feel and there's no limit? Whatever the outlet calls for, that's what you're going to do, or whatever the creativity calls for, that's how you choose your outlet. How do you just go with what you feel?
Yeah, I typically it's a lot of it is instinctual in terms of what's tugging at me. And for the past several months, you know, I this time last year I was cooped up in this laboratory writing the book, and that's pretty much all I was doing. I was writing a little bit of music here and there, yeah. I was writing a little bit of music here and there, you know, 1 or 2 songs every, I mean, there were maybe like 2 songs that I was really kind of like mainly sort of shaping and twerking around. but that was usually like to take a break. To take a break from the book, I would sit down and just play my guitar and be like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." Once I finished the book, there was this sense of like, okay, I got that out of my system. The book's done. Okay, cool. And there was a little bit of residual sort of like, maybe I'll write another one, and so I was writing more and sort of being like, well, I did poetry. Maybe what if I just write a bunch of prose and essay format stuff? And I did that for a little bit, and then that sort of, I think that kind of just worked out a little of the leftover creative juices toward writing. And then my focus shifted back again to music. And I wrote a lot of music in between the spring and fall of 2021. And I've built, almost an hour set of songs that is pretty concise. And then I've played a few shows lately, and as I've played those shows, I got sort of initiated back into the performance poetry. I did a slam recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I should dig this stuff up again. And as I started in the digging, my interest started deeming back to that, and I was like, well, I had a good run. I wrote a lot of music. Right now I feel like doing this. This is what I feel like doing mainly right now. So it sort of goes in waves. There was a good 2-year period where I hardly touched my guitar at all. The strings got all rusty. I never played it, and I almost thought like, well, maybe I'll never play music again. Maybe I've lost the interest in music, because I used to do it, constantly making music. And I think really what it was I will get bored of something after a while if it's the same thing over and over. And I was telling you, I used to do it all in the digital audio workstation. All my music would be on the computer. And doing that for 10 years, I probably sustained that through 10 years by switching eventually from GarageBand to Logic. And then I got bored of that, and then my focus switched to something else. And I was in Playhouse with you guys, and it was all acting, and that stuff. And I've realized, of all the art forms I love, if I get bored with it or I'm disinterested in it, it either means there's something else tugging at me. But what will really bring me back to it is if I find a new toy that will unlock new avenues to explore that medium. So, with music especially, like getting a new instrument completely changes the game. Oh, now it's a new thing to play around with. Writing a song on the piano is so different from writing a song on the guitar, because sometimes like a chord that's easy to play on the piano is really difficult to play on the guitar. So you just never do that chord, or you can never easily do that combination. So you can write like, oh, whoa, here's a completely different kind of song that I can write on the piano. So just introducing myself to a new toy will completely refresh my interest. And so I go through these waves, and it kind of goes through these periods. Within a year, I will be really hyper-focused on this, and then I'll just it'll dry up, and I'll be like, okay, well, now I'm on this now. And I'll do that for a while, and then once I kind of have sort of made the progress that I want to make there, I'm like, well, now this thing. So it's all over the place.
And I'm just going to say, as a spectator of you, it is fun to watch and digest. And you mentioned your book, Moth, Poetry and Prose by Fanter. And the last time you were on the podcast, you were in the process of writing this book. And now the book's out. I've read it. I read it right when it came out. It's brilliant. It's amazing. It blew me away. I read it again today. And just for everyone watching, listening, we're doing this on Christmas, the Christmas episode. Man, it reminded me, and I did exactly, and you're a mentor who wrote your intro. Lady Ariana, is that how I pronounce her name?
Yeah, Lady Ariana Bosco. Yeah.
Bosco, such a brilliant introduction. And she says, you need to read this like a novel. This isn't one of those you pick and choose. And I read it front to back straight. what a ride, man. And what just so much vulnerability, so much honesty, so much just appreciation for life, so much just, just your deepest, darkest, for lack of a better term, brightest moments you write about and share. And it just really, it's such a special piece of art, man. Like I wanted to read it right before we got on here to remind me. And I'm telling you, I won't list the exact things, but because it's all personal, obviously, but it's like, I'm reading some of this. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh my God, this is me right now. Or, and it's, oh my God, dude. It's like, it's interesting how reading it the second time, how specific pieces pulled at me more, because that's where I'm at in my life right now. It was, so tell us about, what it was like to not only write this, and I know you talked about that a little on the last podcast, but really the completion of this and coming out with a book, because you do music, you do so many different art forms, but this was a new one for you to actually publish a book.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, because it was something that didn't require a lot from the rest of the world. I didn't have to go out and buy guitar strings every 2 weeks, or it was just sit down and put it together. Like, and the thing was, I was digging through good 2 years worth of archives to put it together, and so it was one of those. Once it really got rolling, and I got halfway through, it was like, once you're in a project deep enough, you're like, okay, I know I'm going to finish this. Like, I can't not at this point. I have too much invested in it, and I can already see where it needs to go. So, a lot of times I would have to write a new piece, be like, oh, this, is the same thing that I'm kind of doing with the one-man show now, where it was putting together this puzzle, this equation of like, well, the payoff has to be here. The emotional arc has to land here and it climax here. So like, in order to get there, this needs to be substantial enough. I need to build this in here at the beginning so that it makes sense down the road. And some of it would be, I'd have to write a new piece to fill that in, or I'd have to go into my archives and dig out an old piece, or just, it was so exciting to go through several, like 1,500 poems, and then all of a sudden be like, oh my God, oh, I totally forgot I wrote this one, and this is perfect. Oh my God. Because when I started out, I picked, the ones that I thought were the best that I wanted to use. And then as I started to see the narrative, I would add more and more and more. And so it would tell me which direction it needed to go. And then when I would go back and look, I'd be like, well, I wrote this one off as not being one that I would use, but now that I have the story, this is perfect. And now I can use this one. And then, it would remind me, like, I really like this style that I wrote this little one in, and maybe I could pepper a few more of these in there to kind of add to that consistency. And so it would, embolden me to write more like that and try that style out a little more. It just shapes your voice more. You start to discover like how you like to express yourself, and maybe within that particular project, because it might change with the next project or whatever. But the book, man, it's crazy. I tried reading it the other day, and not that I didn't want to, or that I was like, ugh, but I was like, I've noticed how just I think I published it in March of 2021, and here we are almost in 2022, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't resonate with this book as much as I did when I finished it. And it's because of a lot of the emotional, personal, spiritual growth that I've gone through that has exponentially healed a lot of these things that I was struggling with in the when I was putting the book together, and I that book really marks sort of the end of an epoch for me personally. Like it's it's me putting down deep, intimate parts of myself on paper and then being able to see that as a whole and being like, huh, fuck. Well, I'm ready to move on from this. And I think that there's a healing element to diving into yourself, really looking at who you are. I mean, I think the best way to really do that is therapy, and really prioritizing being honest in therapy. But you can do it in your work. You can use your work as a way to do that as well. It shouldn't be the only way, I don't think, but it's a handy tool to reflect on who you are. And I realized that in doing that, in actually doing that, I feel in some way that it sort of finally said, it was me finally confronting these things that I struggle with, and writing myself a love letter to life to say, well, I'm ready to become a new person. So when I pick up the book and I look at it, I'm still happy that it exists. I would never undo it. I'm not displeased with the work, but I don't feel the need to read it because I'm like, I'm ready to move into the future. I like who I am now and the way I think now. And I think that it's an important book for people who have struggled with the same things that I have, or feel the same things that I do, to read that and be like, oh, I can see parts of myself here. For me personally, though, I don't need to revisit that book. I will. I'm sure I will, and it'll be a very beautiful experience to reread it. But I'm not ready to do that right now because I feel like I finally discovered the very first looks at the new world that I'm ready to move into. And the reason I'm ready to move into that is partially because I made that fucking book, which is crazy.
Yeah, and you said something there that really... Oh, yeah. So when you were writing these in the moment. When you were writing a lot of these poems, you weren't writing them, I'm going to write these to put a book together one day. No, you were just writing out of the pure element of creativity with no attachment to it. Yeah. That's what I really enjoy about this, because it's like people, you're going to have to get the book and read it. I mean, it really is a great experience. And it's like when you're reading these, it's like, man, it's just like so authentic. To get to that authentic place, I think you have to be in that mode of like, oh, I'm going to make this book and I'm going to try to sell a bunch of copies. It's like, no, you just created. And then after you created, then you put together the book. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's pretty much how it went, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of times myself and others struggle with the idea of like having a spark of an idea that they could see as this full-fledged thing. And it's like, well, I'm going to write the book. And I think so. I don't know. Maybe some people can do this where they just sit down and start to finish. They take this little kernel of a thought and blast it out as one whole idea. But, I think just forcing yourself to create every day, just sitting down and saying, I'm going to make something every day, or I'm going to just do what's tugging at me now without the idea that it will be the thing. I think about like, there's a moment, I think, in Wolf of Wall Street where Matthew McConaughey is like doing his like little thing. Yeah. Well, like apparently he actually does that. Like that's from his own life. And like, he didn't start doing that because he didn't start doing that forever ago, because he was like, well, eventually someone's going to need to use this in a movie.
Scorsese's going to love it.
Right. Yeah. Eventually I'm going to be in this movie that they're going to use this. No, he just does that. But then eventually it dawned on him like, oh, wait, that fits here. And I think you can look at like the work you create as like, you can make fragments, not everything has to be the pursuit to get to the thing. As long as you're exploring yourself every day and making little fragments or little pieces of things just to get out what's in your system now. And then you eventually discover down the road that like, oh wait, these little fragments all tie together or might fit into this thing that I've been working on and is missing a piece. And now, well, here's a piece that I already have that I didn't really plan to do anything with, but here it is now, and it fits perfectly into that spot. And I think, especially if you're writing, write every day. I'm trying to get back to it. I mean, I've definitely been doing it again lately. I did about 2 years where I was writing. I averaged about 2 a day. Man, that was such a good time. It was such a explorative time. Nowadays, I'm a lot more focused. I was a little more, I was just trying to get the wheels in motion of like practicing, figuring out who I am and what I think, and responding to my daily impulses and using those in some way. And now I feel that is work that has paid off, where I am, if I want to sit down, if I have an idea for something, I can sit down and write it, and it will be what I need it to be. I can execute. I can, my practice and my skill sets align with the divine inspiration a lot of the times. So I feel, as much as getting on the practice again would really help just keep those wheels in motion and keep those tools going. I'm in a state right now. It won't last forever. It's something I'm going to have to get on a daily routine again to keep that tool sharp. But where like I can not create, and then I can just pick up and just do, and it just comes right out. I broke a guitar string last week. I was busking. I was playing music on the street for the first time ever.
On the street in LA?
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. It was totally
Dude, that's
wild.
amazing.
Yeah, it was great. I popped a string. Unfortunately, I was like, fuck, I don't have any, but I was like, oh, well, I got out here and I did it. I'm glad I did this. And I'd been, playing so much music lately and stressing about my voice, and just worrying like, oh, it's not, up to speed, or it's, I'm using it, I'm really destroying it, or I don't know. I was just in my head a lot about my voice, and, finally quit smoking cigarettes again. But a week went by, and yesterday I got some guitar strings and put them back on my, I hadn't played my guitar in a week, hadn't sung anything in a week. I'd just been writing the show. And I just played through like a handful of my favorite songs that I have, and I played them better than played and sang them better than I ever have. Like it was just, and it's just like, oh, it's just in me. I've worked on these things long enough that, like, in a way, like taking the rest didn't hinder anything. I thought, I was like, I'm going to be really rusty, but I wasn't. I sang them better than I'd ever sung them. Which is just an interesting observation I'm having, because I don't think that I think that I'm at a level right now in how much I've worked on practicing my skill sets and exploring my mind and my imagination and working on these tools where I can go a period of time without doing something and then pick it right back up and be able to jump right in with it without having to really get my wheels turning. And I remember Chris Levy talking about these principles with your acting work, where like it's like eventually you won't need to do your emotional preparation for as long, and that's what I'm feeling. But definitely, I think he would also say if you go too long without practicing, I'm not doing the everyday writing practice, but when I do write, I'm very intentional that I am writing. I have something to say, and I'm not just being listless and sort of kind of doing it. Like I'm very disciplined about it and really jump into it hard. So I'm still getting the practice. I'm still doing the work, but just not so much in the gymnasium kind of training where I'm waking up every day and hitting the gym, So, yeah.
I think there's power from stepping away from something. And I think I said this, I might have said this in another podcast, but I had someone that was like a video editing mentor to me at one point, and they told me there's a lot of value if you've been, especially been working on something for a while, to just step away for at least a few hours, if not a couple days. And then eventually you come back to it. And sometimes I found that something that I didn't know what to do with, or I take a couple day break or a day break, and I come back and it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like, well, why didn't I think of that back then? So there is something to be said by doing like a reset. But like you said too, you don't want to go forever without doing something. I don't know if it correlates with you in the guitar, but I think it is good to, like, especially if you've just been head first in something for so long, there is value to step away, reset your perspective, if you will. And then when you come to it, maybe you do see it the exact same, but maybe you go, oh, I never noticed this before because I was so focused on this thing here. I didn't pay attention to this over here. But now that I reset, I'm looking at it for like the first time again.
Yeah, I think that's exactly true, and is very much what happened with me and my guitar over the last week. Was that I took some time to take a breather from it. And like, yeah, you get really close to what you're working on when you're working on it. And you just, it's like anything, like even like a relationship, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're having these difficulties, just emotionally distraught about the whole thing and stressed out, and it's just like, how am I ever going to be happy again? How am I ever going to feel good again? There's shit that's stressing me out. And it's like, sometimes it's just taking a space away from the person. Sometimes it's, end the relationship entirely. But at some point, just removing yourself from having that close view of it, and you come back to it, or you think about it again, you're like, oh, I just needed some time away from it to really kind of get the full scope of what I'm looking at, and see everything for what it is, and see everything that's outside of it, and realize that like I was fixating on certain details and not letting other things get into my window of vision or my periphery. And you get your blinders on and you can forget that there's things outside of it that can refresh your view of it, and you come back to it. It's, oh, right, it's not what I thought it was in that moment, that there's more to this whole scenario.
I can't help but do another plug for Moth, available on Amazon by Ford Fanter. There's a poem in there regarding relationships, and I'll just end with the last line. It's something along the lines of, and here I go back into my next passionate disaster. And I'm like, oh my God, exactly what you're just saying, like how you can get blinded. You get blinded by certain things, whether it's in a relationship, romantic, business, friendship, whatever. Like these certain feelings cloud our judgment sometimes. And the only way to really sit back and make good decisions is to take that space, like you just said. And like really, for me, it's been meditation, journaling. It could be therapy. It could be art. It could be anything. But I think it's important for people to have those check-ins with themselves,
Yeah,
especially with big decisions.
Oh yeah, I think therapy is one of those things. Like right now, it's a non-negotiable for me. I'm at my therapy appointment every week, and I'm always there with my gloves off. I'm ready to go in and do it, and I don't move my therapy around. I don't hear a plan where someone's like, oh, this is happening on, Monday at 4. No, I have therapy and I'm doing that. That's like a non-negotiable. I'm going to that because I really have seen the benefit in my own life of doing that. And that's my like extreme check-in where I'm like, I need that. I found that I don't need it. My therapist is out of town right now, or on vacation, and so haven't met for a couple of weeks, but it's like, I know if I have to take space from that, or that I can't, get into that every week, that I do know that I've done enough work. I've got my head on my shoulders. I can last without it, but given the option to do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm committed to showing up for that. I think everybody should, should consider doing therapy if they haven't. And that, like, I put it off for a long time. I was like, well, I need to do that right now. I'm doing okay right now. But it's just like, I've realized that having a place where it's not just like getting stuff off your chest. I think that's what a lot of people view it as like, I'm just releasing the valve. Maybe that is what it is for some people. But for me, what it is I'm hearing myself talk out loud, unfiltered about myself to another person, without the fear that it's going to affect a relationship, without the fear that it's going to, alienate me or cause some kind of issue in my life. So now I get to hear what I actually sound like. And now I actually know what I am. I'm actually hearing myself for the first time be fully myself, or maybe I hear something and I'm like, I don't like that I just said that. I don't like that that's coming out of my mouth, but clearly it's what I think right now. So, I have to do something about that if I don't want this to continue. If I don't want to be this, but it's like you get a real honest look at yourself and you start to know who you are. And I think just like the fact that there's someone there that will sit there and listen to it and not be like, okay, whoa, and then not talk to you ever again. They're going to keep showing up. I think instills the courage about yourself, makes you realize, even if it's, you're paying this person to be there, but there's a real psychological experience that happens when you can talk completely unfiltered about what you think about things and how you feel about things, and it's not going to push someone away. It gives you that courage that, like, I can be honest. I can be a lot more honest about who I am, and it's not going to scare people away because I'm in this situation where I'm doing that right now. I mean, maybe it would scare them away, but it still gives you the courage. And I'm realizing that most things don't. And if they do, if the truth about who you are does scare people away, obviously we've all heard that, they're not people you want around in the first place. But I think it's just like, it really gives you the opportunity to really be intimate with yourself in a way that nothing else in my life ever has. And that's really big for me. That makes me realize already how many fears are overcomable and things are changeable. So I would recommend it to fucking anybody. Therapy's awesome.
Yeah, hearing you talk about it and some others, I mean, yeah, it's definitely something I need to get into as well, because I've realized with myself, anytime with it doesn't even mean like even if you're not having quote unquote like huge anxiety problems about stuff, even stuff like I always think in my head and think is the way of the world. But then there's been times like, and I've thought this for a long time, like, oh yeah, but I've never talked to you out loud about. But the second I actually articulate it and talk it out loud to another human being, I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. Or that's actually, no, I don't think that. Oh my God, right. That's what I was thinking. Like, so I can see the value of just, even if you're not coming to them with any real, like, it just start talking about just certain thoughts. Like, I can see a huge benefit in that. Because our minds the mind is so crazy. It's so crazy how it can mess with you and manipulate the world to you. It's a powerful tool for the good as well, but I can see how like it's kind of like taking your car to the mechanic almost and letting them do some checks and go, whoa, no, that's not it. But you're like doing it to yourself type of thing. Like, I don't know. So I'm appreciate you opening up and expressing what you feel about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've realized is like, I'm not who I think I am. And not in, I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way or in totality, but there are times where I'm like, I mean, just even in this conversation, there are ways which I've articulated myself off the cuff where I'm like, if I had sat down and planned out what I was going to say, it would have sounded completely different, and when you create, I think a lot of there are, if I never let my ideas out of my head, I would think of myself artistically as a completely different person. Because the things that actually get made are not the things that I, in my head, was setting out to make. I mean, yes, they are, but in the same time, no, they're not. I love, there are certain types of, just different types of art that I consume, whether it's movies or music or, like even I listen to a lot of like folky kind of folk rock music, but I make a lot more of it than I actually listen to, and I am, I'm an actor. My main thing is that, I don't really watch a whole lot of movies, the things that I consume aren't always what's coming out of me, or vice versa. I think it was just highlighted to me when I was having a conversation, and I was like talking to a guy that I had just met, and we were both talking about how we both do music, and he was asking me like what my style was, and I was trying to explain it to him, and I was using these different artists to sort of be like, it's kind of like this mixed with this mixed with this, and he was like, oh, do you listen to a lot of that stuff? And I was like, I don't know, do I? I don't think I do. I'm probably going home and listening to like ambient music and orchestral music or like really electronic, it's like sometimes it is. Sometimes what's coming out of me is exactly a replication of what I'm making, but sometimes what's coming out of me is just what has to come out of me. And I think a lot of us, especially people going into, with aspirations to do something creative, what is a hindrance is conflating what you like and what you're inspired by as being what you have to create, or the thing that you really want to create, or the type of artist you want to become. Like, because you might have something in you that's not been done yet, and it's personal to you, and it's going to come out the way it's going to come out that is unique to you. And if you think of yourself, well, like, oh, I'm really into punk rock, to use a random example, like I want to make punk rock music, but what if you write really great kid songs, like goofy kid, you just happen to be really good at that, and for some reason, you, aside from the person that likes punk rock a lot and wants to be the punk rocker, you just happen to just naturally get sucked into doing these really great kid songs that like kids love, and parents are like, oh, I'm so glad I found these songs that my kids can get down with. And you never would have thought like, I'm going to be an artist that makes kids music. Like, no, I'm into punk rock. That's my thing. It's fucking Adam Sandler in Happy Gilmore. Like that's the experience where he's like, no, I'm a hockey player. It's like, no, when you actually, allow yourself to out of that thing that you really like, you find that actually you're a golfer. You're an incredible golfer. You might be one of the best golfers around. Yeah, it would have been nice if you could have exacted on that dream as being the hockey player that you wanted to be. But like, this is really more who you are than that is. But that plays into who you are. It's what you like. It's what you enjoy. And you don't have to throw that out or get rid of that. But allow yourself to go in the direction that you don't really understand. I think that's a lot of it. I mean, it speaks to the divine that Pressfield talks about, and the muse, and these things that sort of pull you in a direction and said, I was like, well, I really wanted to be a punk rocker. That's really what I wanted to do. It's like, but that's been done by the punk rockers did that. I'm not saying that you always have to do something new. You can't do that, but like, stop trying to create what you think you're supposed to be and find out what you actually are. And, therapy has helped do that. And that's partially what therapy also does, is that, I don't know if those thoughts were linked, but they're linked now.
Dude, you got me thinking. That's all I got to say. That's some real talk right there. And I can't remember, again, this is paraphrasing. It was some entrepreneurship video, but this guy basically broke down it kind of that same philosophy. You can't be everything to everybody. You can't do it all type of thing. Mm-hmm. But he's like, you will become the most successful when you pick that one thing that you're really good at. And like you just said, sometimes that thing you're really good at isn't what your true passion is. And it's not that you have to say, well, I got to do or I have to throw out all the passions. It's like, you can still do those things, but yeah, I agree 100%. But don't ignore something that you're really, really good at that could open doors to those passions somehow.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really brilliant insight that you brought up there, especially for artists.
Yeah. It's like, I know that for me as an actor, there are a lot of actors that I look up to that I would like to be like, and whose work where I'm like, oh, that's the kind of career I want to have. Those are the kind of characters I want to play. And in some instances, I've gotten to kind of do that. But I look back on those instances and I realize, but those were not me at my most complete and my fullest as an actor. I'm realizing how some of those things were fun to do, but what really is enjoyable is exploring this version of myself that is completely unique to me. And it's not what I expected. It's not who I expected to be as an actor. And I could have probably pulled off to a certain degree some of the stuff that I wanted to pull off, but it would not have been as authentic and it would not really have been as good. Maybe it would have fooled some people and it would have fooled me if I believed it for a while, and it would have passed as being, good work, but really doing the really good work that is in store for me if I, as I continue to pursue it, will be the stuff that's so uniquely me that isn't recognizable to all those other things that I've done that I wanted to work or pan out, and realizing like I thought of myself as this type of actor, comparing myself to these types of people. I'm like, I'm actually like a hybrid of these two. And I never really would have thought it would have been those two. But now that I've gotten to know what my instrument is a little more, I'm like, oh, whoa, I actually kind of like this version. This is way cooler. This is way more interesting. There's way more to go in this direction for me personally.
Well, it's like what they taught us at Playhouse too, is there's only one you. That's what really opened my eyes, like about acting and stuff, is when they're like, because I would always get confused. What do you mean do the scene as me? What do you mean read it as Sam? I read it as, they're like, no, you're interpreting it, but you're living this out as you. You're not trying to be anyone else but you. And I'm tying this into, as we get a little bit deeper into ego. Yeah. Here we go. Start the lawnmower, but it's I got it behind me. Ram Dass's, which I know you're familiar with. Not Be Here Now, but he wrote this other one, Journey of Awakening, a Meditator's Guidebook, which is really, really good. And he talks about. Right. Oh, there we go. Be Here Now, baby. I know you're on the Ram Dass train, and he talks about, because I know you go in these like, because as an artist you have to have some ego. I don't care, like you got to have something, but at the same time you got to be careful, because that ego can totally dissolve reality and make you chase things that all due to ego, and that's a whole other conversation. But he talks about like how the idea that the ego is like going into a room or changing clothes that you have. They're not you. It's not you. But in society, in this dimension, you need it to operate. You need it to make a living. You need it to whatever you're good at to do. So you said when you can separate and go, all right, I'm going to go into this room right now, which is my ego. Or I'm going to put on my clothes right now, which is my ego, but it's not me. And I say all that to say, when you're talking about just the beauty of discovering yourself, and I know you and I talk about this all the time, breaking yourself completely down to nothing. But then you don't stay at the nothing. Now we're going to put it back together. And maybe some parts you put together the exact same, but you're like, as you're putting it together, like, no, we're not putting that together this way. So I say all that to just get on that topic. That's what you reminded me of, like just knowing yourself and having that. There is such freeing. It's so freeing to finally just accept yourself. To just accept yourself and be like, man, I'm me. And there's no one else like me. And I want to just discover as much about me as possible. And whether I become known publicly and lots of people know who this me is, great. And if they don't, great. But I think that's one of the greatest gifts not only people can give to themselves, but can give to the world, is to really discover who you are and be happy with that.
Yeah. That took me my whole life up until now, and I'm still, obviously it's going to take the rest of my life too. And I think that just goes for everybody, but I, even in 2021, was really grappling with how much stake I had put in the opinions of other people, and how much I had allowed for myself to dim parts of myself and present different versions of myself for someone else's approval. And I'm starting to really settle into a discipline of trying to, like, what do I look like when I don't change anything, when I don't augment myself for the purposes of protecting myself against rejection. And I'm slowly getting better at it. I'm still not always telling the truth in certain circumstances, or not bearing it all in every situation. And I'm aware of those moments. At least I'm more aware of when I'm like, man, you know what? Next time, I don't want to kind of give a half-hearted, kind of white lie response to this, just because it's, maybe next time I do want to say exactly what I'm thinking in that moment and see what that's like. But I mean, part of it is, getting that practice in therapy and confronting, what do I actually think? What do I actually feel? And I think, like, there's a period of time which is very uncomfortable in that experience, where you're caught with you're still, stuck with a lot of your old thoughts and ideas of what a person is supposed to be like, which are not accurate a lot of the times. And then you're experimenting with this new person that's, trying to figure out deeper and deeper who your personality is. And those things that's very uncomfortable, because, like, and I think a lot of people have been going through that. I think the COVID experience, coupled with a lot of the other distressing things about our society and our culture right now, social media being one of them, and the climate, and just all these things coalescing into this perfect storm, where people are like, wait a sec, like, do I really know what the fuck is going on right now? And then when you do an audit of that, you realize, like, oh shit, I don't know what's going on with myself, let alone everything out there. So, oh shit, I guess I got to get to the bottom of who I am. And in doing that, you start to realize, like, oh shit, I'm alienating a lot of people, which just sucks at first, because you're like, fuck, I don't have any friends, like, all the people that I have put my stake in, like, these relationships are fizzling and crumbling. Am I a piece of shit, really? is this really what I am actually? Is like a repulsive person no one wants to be around? But that's not true. It's just like, wait, oh, fuck. I have built these relationships on a fabrication. Of course they're falling apart because these aren't the relationships for who I really am. These are the relationships for the person that I've been pretending to be. Now that I'm no longer pretending to be that person, these relationships aren't useful anymore. A lot of them aren't, you know? And you start going through a period where, like, I found myself being a lot more selfish lately. But it's because I'm actually, you know, trying to figure out, well, like, what's me more unfiltered? What do I actually want? Instead of being a people pleaser, what do I want? And I don't think I'll just stay selfish or my idea of myself. I don't think I'm actually being selfish, but I think I am in other ways that, you know, everybody is in some degree or some capacity, but it will even out, I think. But you know, it's like, if you're over here and you want to be here, a lot of times our first move is to go all the way over here, you know, and it's like a pendulum eventually, or a metronome, where you might finally kind of, through experimentation over time, eventually get to that center. And so I've experienced that so much in my life. When I finally have a huge paradigm shift of self, I fly from one extreme to the other. And I'm like, no more God, no more spiritualism, no more Christian church. We're going full on atheists. No God, only science, skepticism, and you know, and then, but you know, lately, I've started to swing back a little more and be like, you know, maybe this Jesus cat had some pretty groovy ideas, you know, like maybe there's not so much stuff in some of, maybe like the basic tenets of what I was taught, to love other people and be humble. Like, okay, I do agree with a lot of those things. And so, you know, I'm not swinging all the way back to that extreme, but I'm moving a little bit back here a little bit and starting to realize, okay, and I'm sure that process will continue.
You learn to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's really what I've been, that's where I've been, especially with like Jesus. And because the same with me, like when I started going back to the New Testament, and really, and Eric and I, we watch Jesus of Nazareth from the 70s, which is brilliant, by the way, if you've never seen it. It's dope. Phenomenal acting. It's really good. But you just really get the picture of like, okay, like instead of attaching these things from me growing up and having my vision of religion be painted by people, man, if you will, and the hierarchy and the structure and what man does with everything, you know, actually look at the root of where this is all coming from and process that information how you will. And then when I do that, it's like, oh, okay, you can have all this over here. that ain't for me, what you guys are doing. But this right here, what this cat's saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it, man. Like, he was groovy. And same with a lot of the religious texts. It's like, you don't have to agree with everything, but I'm like you, man. I'm very black and white. It's like, well, if it's not this, then it's that. And if it's not that, it's this. I'm finding that the beauty's actually in the gray, the in-between.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that there's something to be said for not having an enemy. Which is a thought that you know, as you were saying that, it formed in my head, and I realized, like, oh, you know, and I think it goes into what we've, you know, read in a lot of things, awareness being one of them, where it's, you know, when you renounce something, you're tied to it forever. And that idea of like, when you create an enemy, when you found, you know, if I'm a young kid and I'm in a Christian home, my enemy is everything that doesn't align with the Christian idea. And when I was in my early 20s and I flung really hardcore atheist, my enemy was Christianity and organized religion and all these things. And I find that in politics, when you're a liberal and your enemy is the conservatives, or when you're a conservative and your enemy are the liberals, I mean, I really do bristle when people say stuff like, oh, just put politics aside and we just need to find some common ground, because I do think that there is some degree of like, it's more complicated than that. I'm not arguing indifference or pacifism, but because I think that there's two ways to approach transcending the like the political landscape, or the very what's the word I'm looking for? I guess something that is of the world. There's bypassing and then there's transcending. Which I suspect are two different things. Spiritually bypassing is where you use your spirituality or your attempt at spirituality as an excuse to not engage in the actual world you're in, and be like, well, I don't have to talk politics because I'm spiritual. And I think that there is a valid criticism in that view of things. However, I do feel that there is a valid criticism in looking at like, our problems are deeper than your political leaning, because and so there is something to be said for like, why engage in a political conversation when that's not the root of what our issue is. And I'm not saying we shouldn't find the root and hack at it. But we shouldn't hack at the branches. And so I forget why I got on this train of thought. But within I guess it's just the idea of extremes, going to extremes, and like you said, the gray area. I think that there is, the more I identify with something so specific, the more I feel like I'm at the mercy of something outside of myself. And I want to work towards being someone who can first, I have to know myself. So, comes back to what we were just talking about earlier. It's like really getting to know who you are and what you think about things, and what you are at your core. And then saying, well, every scenario is complicated. And I think a lot of us want control. We want simplicity. We want boiled down ideas, things that we can apply over and over and they work. But it's more complicated than that. I think that the issues can be solved, but we can't passively address them. And I think sometimes we're caught between the choice of having to labor over every specific scenario, which is exhausting, taxing, and which makes us feel like I want to check out entirely. But then there's that level of things where you can apply your one size fits all, which may be in the form of capitalism, totalitarianism, fascism, any of the isms, it's like this, here's the blanket solution that we've got to these things. But like you said, things are in a gray area. Everything requires its own meticulous investigation and understanding. And you can't just be like, well, this person's this way, or they are that way, or this situation is this way, just like all these other situations. Everything's unique. And you have to apply the nuanced perspective to things. And I think if you haven't done the work on yourself, if you haven't taken a step back from all those things and said, okay, who the fuck am I in the first place? You're never going to be able to apply any nuanced thought to any of those things. So, it's everything is so delicate, and you have to be careful. And I think it's okay that that's overwhelming to people sometimes. I understand it's overwhelming to me sometimes.
Well, and that's one of the bringing up Anthony DeMello awareness again, which pretty much gets talked about every episode for good reason. Yeah. One of my favorite things, and he's not the only one that's ever said this. I've read this from other people too, but they said, and again, are there some issues that need to be addressed? Of course. But it can get into dangerous territory when some are just to the extreme, like, I'm going to save the world, and they just have one way of looking at it, and this is how I'm going to do it. And then you have someone else on the opposite end of the spectrum that has that same passion you do, but they think the exact opposite, or they've been conditioned the exact opposite. And you just have these people that build these tribes, and this is how it's going to be. No, this is how it's going to be. And a lot of people, we've lost critical thinking. People really don't. I love what you said in the last podcast. Is something along the lines, you believe that you believe that you believe, but do you really believe? Are you just believing? A lot of people, I think, and we'll bring up social media here in a sec, a lot of people are constructing their ideas and forming their opinions based on the opinions of others. And that's dangerous. I'll say something else about that, but it's like, when DeMello says, if you really want to help the world, help yourself first. Like, do that work, do that inner work. And again, yeah, if someone's in peril next to you, don't ignore it because, hey, man, I'm just doing my inner work right now. It's like, you got to read the situation. But
right.
I just wonder where we would be sometimes. I use this example, like I'm at the gym, I'm on the bike, and they got one news station that has one political view, the exact opposite news station that has the other political view, and the sound's off, right? And it was very interesting. It was very crazy. I was looking at, I'm watching them going back and forth, and they're just all angry. Every single one of them. And they bring on a guest that is going to be for whatever they're trying to promote. And you have that fueling. And it reminds me of a book I read, Top 10 Reasons to Delete Your Social Media Account by Jared Lanier. You're just creating content for a base you already know that exists, and you're fueling that fire. You're making advertisement off it. Now look, and I'm watching both of them. I'm just going back and forth. There's like an interesting experiment. And, you're like, you know what? I think over here, if you uncover all the crap and the hype, there are probably a couple points in there. Over here, when you get rid of all this, they're probably making a couple points in here. But the thing is, we lose those good, solid points on both sides with tribalism and this, if you're not on this team, you're against us type of mentality. I feel it's very dangerous. It's dividing, and really a product of a lot of what we're seeing right now. And social media has just, and that's really, I know we've had this talk, like I'm really being cautious now of what I'm consuming in my mind, because, you think you know what reality is, but maybe your reality is based upon you looking at your phone all day and you only seeing a certain side of something. And that's all you consume all day long. And then when you do confront someone that has a different, oh, you're the enemy, it's you. But they have the exact opposite information coming to them. And now you're the enemy. And I don't know. That's just kind of a short rant I have on all that. But that's what it reminded me of when you started talking about all that.
Yeah, I think the trick that I found that helps me feel a little more in control. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the word to use, but let's see. How am I going to articulate this? It's specific in my head. I don't know if I have the words. It's so, I'm the kind of person, and I've come to realize this more and more. I don't want to overuse the word empath or whatever, but I do feel that it's not terribly difficult for me to see a point of view that, it was part of what we've trained ourselves to do as actors, is be able to take on a point of view that maybe you don't agree with at all and make it real to you, and I think maybe that's any ability that I had to do that in the first place, it was because of this willingness to be like, oh, okay, I can see where that comes from. And so like it can get very, very turbulent when it's like, when there is a lot of anger and there's all these issues that are being talked about, and you get frazzled about like, well, I don't know what's right, and you look at what you think other people should be doing, and there's this pressure of like, well, you got to engage in the landscape somehow. You have to do something. You can't just be passive and indifferent. I know that affects me a lot. That weighs on me, that sense of like, I get frazzled. But I do know that what I always have power and control over is myself. And anytime I'm upset about other people's behaviors on any end of the spectrum, where it always lands nowadays is, what is this telling me about myself? Do I do this? Am I witnessing behavior that I think should change in other people? But I don't know how to get that across to them, or I don't know if it's even necessarily, I might be wrong, and I don't know, and I'm confused. Well, it's like, well, change yourself. Give yourself, you are the first place to start in that. So how can I adjust myself? How can I, there was an example that I was going to use that I don't remember anymore, and it would have really been more articulate on this thought. But I think the idea is that, like, I don't feel as stressed out about, what am I supposed to do about this world? What contribution am I supposed to make? It's like, well, the first contribution I have to make is by making sure that I know what things I need to fix in my own self, and working dutifully to fix those things. And that will serve as an example. Instead of barking down someone's neck, I don't want people to be silent about injustices or disparities. And again, I don't want myself or anyone else to bypass these things. But it can be so hard to know where to start and know what's best to do and what efforts are useful and where not to spread yourself thin. And I think one of the best places to start is at least, doing that internal audit and being like, where am I lacking? Where am I failing continuously to rise to the challenges that, I'm seeing all these things that need to be fixed, and it's easy to see it all as external, but it's, a lot of it's in you, and committing to addressing those things in yourself, and knowing that eventually that will radiate out. It won't just automatically do it. Eventually you might feel compelled to really start. You might know better how to address an issue, and insist on changing something. I don't know, I lost my train of thought on it there.
Well, I don't know if this is correlating exactly what you're talking about, but you and I have sort of started to talk about this in conversations, and it's just been something on my mind. I've really started to, maybe bringing social media into the conversation, I didn't realize how much social media distorted my reality. Like how I thought I knew what reality was based upon through this phone and on these Instagram and stuff like that. But it's amazing how much more fulfilling life has become when I've stepped away from that and started embracing like what's in front of me in my real reality. And I guess what I mean to say as well, because when you were talking all those things, it reminds me of the quote, I don't know if Einstein said it or whoever said it, he said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again with the same results. And I'm realizing there's certain things in my life that maybe I've wanted or I thought I wanted, and I wonder why I always end up at the same place. And then you have that, well, you just got to keep trying, and you just got to keep working hard and ambition. But it's like, I got my one friend, shout out to KC, and I hope I quote him correctly, but he's like, you're on the right track, but you're on the wrong train. Like, meaning like there's been a couple situations in my life lately where the way I would normally go, I was like, you know what? I've gone down this road multiple times, and it always brings me back to the same place. I'm going to try to take the other path this time. And it's amazing how eye-opening that can be. And I'm not saying that you choosing to go the other path sometimes always the right way to go, but it does make you realize how much of yourself I've been in my head, or I didn't even realize I was conditioned to be doing, that I was doing on autopilot. Like you were saying, and as you were, it's like you and I just spew out all this stuff, and now I'm just trying to pick the gems, but it's like, a lot of people like aren't even aware. Like they aren't even aware of what they're doing. And I've been in that boat several times with several things. And then I'll say like, man, why isn't this that? Or why haven't I gotten this yet? And it's like, wait a minute. Have you even broken this down? Like, have you ever even truly looked at it and thought it through and thought about the true authenticity of what you really want? I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but like, that's just really where I've been lately. Like really, like how many things in life have I told myself I think I want, but you don't really want that. You want the things that are maybe attached to it, like validation or popularity or whatever, pleasure, whatever. That's a whole other topic, that, chasing pleasure and desire. And it's like, man, like it's amazing how satisfying and freeing life can really be when you really start to let all that go and you really just start to enjoy and embrace whatever's in front of you. So
yeah. Oh man, I agree with that a lot. And I think that I do notice that more and more. I notice I've been really trying to smash my illusions and confront them and really look at, oh, here's what I thought was the bedrock of things that, well, whatever I question, these things are always true, and start to like chip at those and realize like, wait, even some of these aren't the bedrock. There's stuff even beneath here, or maybe there's nothing beneath here. And you realize sometimes I'll be having a conversation with someone and it's not like a smug experience, but I'm going like, wait, do you even hear yourself? And it's this realization, maybe even like desire, for example, where, I mean, just in relation to the COVID crisis, when people are like, when is this, I can't wait till this is over and things are back to normal, or, and realizing it's like, well, your life is happening right now. And you think that this thing external from you, this experience, your expectations of what life is supposed to be, your desire about where it was supposed to go, is the thing that's gonna give you your satisfaction in your life. And it's not, like you gotta maybe learn how to enjoy life in whatever situation it comes. And I mean, that's just one of those simple ideas with relation to that, where when I just hearing someone talk about like, why am I unhappy? My desires are coming true. Why am I not happy? And it's like, well, it's because you think desires are going to make you happy. Once you wake up to that and you realize like, oh, the things I want aren't maybe the things I want, and it's like, yeah, you're doing the same thing over and over and accept it and expecting a different result. Like, why have none of my relationships worked? And you keep looking for a new one. I gave this here. I'll give you an analogy. I gave this to someone recently. Someone who was like really upset about a lot of things in their life, and a lot of it seemed to be how things external from them were going. And it was a lot of issues with the relationships. Their distress over why their relationships weren't going well. And I could see, I was like, well, you've got, if you are yourself and you think of yourself and your contentment, as an apartment. You live in an apartment and you've got this, you're not crazy about the hardwood floor in your apartment. It's a little dinged up, it's grody, it's old, it's creaky and stuff. And your friend's like, well, I got a rug. I got a great space rug, borrow my rug. Oh, cool. You put the rug down. Oh, fuck yeah. The rug ties the room together perfectly, and the you're so cozy in that main room with the rug in it and everything's cozy the way you like it. You want to hang out in there all the time. It's so great. Eventually the friend comes back and they're like, hey, I'm moving. I just kind of want that rug back, and then they literally pull the rug out from under you. And then it's like, oh, fuck. you know, like now this room is not comfortable for me. A lot of people, when that happens, seem to go, well, who's a friend now that I can borrow a rug from? Who can I borrow a rug from? You know, and then they go and they find their friend, you know, their friend has another rug. They borrow that rug and they, oh, fine, cozy again. You know, I got my rug, you know, my space is cozy again. I can have here. Eventually that friend's like, oh, hey, I need that rug back. Why does this keep happening to me? Why? Why can't I just enjoy my space? It's like, because you're not appreciating the hardwood floor, for one. Figure out a way to enjoy the hardwood floor, maybe. You know, you're going about this the wrong way, you know, and it's like, of course you're not getting what you want because you're building it around the scenario that doesn't make any sense. It's illogical, you know. You okay, so eventually you used to decide, fuck it, I can't keep borrowing a rug from someone and then getting the rug pulled out from under me. That hurts too much and it fucks up my space and I can't. So fuck it, I'm just gonna do with the hardwood floor. Eventually you're staring at the hardwood floor and it's like, ugh, I don't even want to be in my space right now because I don't like this hardwood floor. So you start going out and you leave your apartment more. You start going out more and doing more things. And you come back home, you're a little more exhausted because you had a full day of going out and doing things. So you sleep well. You're not as bothered by the fact that your room doesn't have a rug in it because, oh, well, I'm tuckered out. I was out doing shit, whatever. I'm going to fall asleep. And eventually you realize over time, you're like, you know what? Actually, this hardwood floor actually looks kind of nice. It's not that bad at all. You start to get used to it. But, you know, you're living your life. You're going out. You're doing things. And then all of a sudden, bam, you're at a flea market, and there's the most beautiful rug you've ever seen in your life. And you didn't settle for someone else's that they picked out. Bam, there it is. That's exactly the one I want. And you get it. Now it's yours. You bought it. It's now your space is furnished, and no one can take it away from you. And even if you didn't have that rug, you still appreciate the dingy wood floor because you fucking let it be that. And you didn't keep running like a fool to all these things that weren't yours in the first place. Like someone else's ability to give you something to satisfy, it wasn't yours in the first place. The job that you think will give you your happiness or all the money, none of it's yours. The only thing that's yours is what's inside you, you know, your outlook. That's the only thing that you actually have and you have any control over. And when people put all these expectations on these external things to be, you know, the satisfier, and they get frustrated when they keep chasing that. It's like, it's not that you didn't get the right solution. You're doing the problem wrong. You're doing the wrong equation. So of course you're never gonna get the result you want if your equation is faulty. You have to change the equation, which comes from inside.
That was amazing.
I like that.
It's gonna be real hard to pick. It's gonna be hard to pick the promo out of this one because there's a. Well, yeah. I mean, to sum it up, you did the work. You did the work to get that rug eventually, instead of relying on just complaining about things in the easy way, quote unquote, which is never. You got to do the work.
Yeah,
got to do that inner work.
And accept that well, I mean, a lot of why we got on that train of thought was what we were talking about was like questioning your illusions and questioning your, you know,
right,
what it is you expect to give you what you want. And I feel like I'm starting to realize that I don't need anything in life. I don't need anything. And that to live, you know, I guess to put it another way, like I think happiness and I think love are two things that are unconditional, and they're only unconditional. And I think that a lot of us go, you know, if we were to be told, well, if you want happiness, it's unconditional. If you want love, it's unconditional. It's like, well, I'm not asking for it to meet all of my conditions. I just want it to meet one or two. And it's like, well, you're screwed, because I didn't say it was kind of conditional. I said it was unconditional. That means you can't have any. You can't give out the conditions. You can't accept the conditions. Like, under no condition, or happiness is yours, but it has to come with no conditions. You can't say, well, under the condition that I have the job I want, or under the condition I have the girl I want, or boy, or whatever. Under these conditions, I can be. No, it's like, no. And then when you realize that, you realize, oh wait, so I don't actually need anything to get love or to get happiness. It means I already have it. And that's liberating. And now it's like, well, now I can go anywhere and do anything. I'm free. Now I can actually go after anything I want because I have nothing to lose. Because I have everything and nothing. Because nothing is everything. I don't know. And I think that's incredibly liberating. And I think that's what I was kind of talking about earlier. It's like, well, I hear a lot of people saying, why aren't the conditions I've set forward bringing me this thing that's unconditional? It's like, do you not hear the logic? But a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't realize that those things are unconditional. But it's amazing how many people will use the term unconditional love, but couple it in the same sentence with all these conditions. It's crazy.
I'm just now starting to truly understand the concept of unconditional love. It's something that people always say, but probably majority don't even realize what it actually is and don't even practice it. But it's like, man, like really coming, and it doesn't even have to be in a romantic sense always. It can just be from anything. I'm really learning to just truly accept people for who they are. Now, when I say that, there's a difference between accepting them for who they are and what they do and how they act. Obviously, if there's something they're doing that's detrimental to themselves or others, it's not inappropriate sometimes to, hey, you may want to consider XYZ. But in the long run, it's like, you're exactly right. Like, oh, I love you. It's like, no, you love them only if XYZ happens. Like, and that's what's really, I think it was Power and Now. Eckhart Tolle talked about that. Just like this, just true acceptance of people, just true acceptance of how they are and embracing people's differences. And I really like the analogy you did give with the rug, and even accepting yourself unconditionally too. I've never really thought of that till right now, like giving yourself unconditional love. Like, look, I'm gonna fuck up. There's gonna be times where like, gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Or why do I keep doing this? It's all right. You're just aware of it. I don't mean to keep name dropping books here, but like, someone's saying like, or Eckhart Tolle said too, like, just being aware that you're like not present and not totally there is being aware. Like, it's a step. Like, just having that awareness of like, man, I keep messing up. Well, at least you're aware that you keep, and it's never going to be perfect. I don't think any of us are ever, it's just a constant adjustment almost. And I say adjustment, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that reminds me of what you sent me yesterday, that the lady who's on the flight and she realizes like, I'm not happy, and it's like, well, you could beat yourself up because your life isn't the way, but you just in that realization, that awareness of that thought, you're already forging the new path. You're clearly already on your way to changing your life because you finally admitted to yourself, I'm not happy, and so it's like, I've been guilty of that where I've beat myself up because I'm not where I need to be. But it's like, well, you're getting there, and the evidence that you're getting there is that that you're not where you need to be. You have that awareness, and that's a step in the right direction in and of itself.
Yeah, no, anyone listening or watching Tim Ferriss episode 555, audio chapter from the book 4,000 Weeks, Cosmic Insignificance, which I don't know, that was, it's uplifting at the same time. Like, wow, that's kind of morbid to know that we're just like this blip of a blip of a blip of existence, and all of this is going to be eradicated. You actually had a poem in Moth at the end. That's actually what you're in. I won't give it away, but like the end of Moth kind of gave me that vibe. Like, and that's why, you tell me, man, like die empty. Like, die empty, because either way, it's coming. one way or another. So if there's something in you that you do want to get out and do get out to the world, like put it out.
Yeah. I think where I'm really starting to find myself fall is, and we've talked a little bit about this, but letting go. And I mean that in terms of like letting go of my expectations of everything. And that's, I mean, it's very hard to do, but like I don't know how to face climate change without, without sitting myself down and having a talk that like, look, buddy, you're going to die at some point. And you could die in a fireball in climate change. Like that could happen. That's not out of the realm of, like don't be fatalistic about it. Don't let that be a thing that puts you in depression. But like, let's be realistic, and you're gonna whatever the future has in store for you, because if anything we've learned, we have no idea where any of this shit's going. I mean, it's getting real weird these days. And I think the only way for me to keep my sanity is to do what I used to think was ultimately give it up, which is just be like, let anything that's coming come and be okay with it. I'm going to die. Like I might as well like start taking daily steps to preparing myself for like, it might get ugly. Your life might just get worse and worse and worse. And instead of trying to manipulate the outside circumstances and desperately clamor for something to protect yourself, I think that I would rather say, well, give it to me. Give me all you got, universe. Give me the thunder and lightning. Like, not so much, asking for struggle or suffering, but realizing that, like, I mean, we grew up in such a normally peaceful time in human history. And I think we're spoiled by that. And I want to undo that spoiling and just prepare myself for anything and be like, I am okay, with anything. I stumbled on an essay that I was writing just a couple days ago. I was writing a couple months back about kind of the idea of like gratitude and how people, use, you suffer so that good things can happen. Like suffering is important and it's good. It's good because on the other end of suffering is good things. And there's a part of me that really sees the value in that, obviously, the value in that belief. I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want to suffer. But I also want to be realistic that maybe there is nothing on the other end of suffering. And I want to be okay with that too. I want to be willing to be like, well, if I suffer and that's all there is, I want to be able to be okay with that. Because then you're still putting your expectation on something beyond, a reward for the suffering. But it's like, if you can be okay with the suffering, even if you don't think that there is no reward, man, I think that's, you're unstoppable. You can really enjoy life if you can even accept the suffering with no promise of a payoff. And I think a lot of times we choke down that medicine of suffering, so that, this idea that it will, you're going to learn something from it. You do. Yeah, you do. It's a weird paradoxical thing. It's a weird kind of hard thing to even understand in my own mind, that like the reward, it is a reward. You do get rewarded. But it's like, it's in the same like tenets of any kind of like Buddhist philosophy, where like your desire to not suffer is still a desire, and only by releasing yourself of the desire can you actually have the desire fulfilled. But at that point, you don't need the desire to be fulfilled, but it's still going to be fulfilled anyway, because you've released yourself. And that's the trick. That's the way to get out of the loop. And I think of it in the same way. I just think it's the idea of surrendering to any possibility and saying, well, it's like people, I used to say like, well, I'm okay with dying. I want it to be quick and painless. No, I'd rather just be okay with dying, even if it's slow and agonizing. I want to be okay with that too. Unconditional.
There's like 20 things I want to say. The first is, you remind me, because you brought him up on IG the other day. I think Timothy Leary, when he was diagnosed, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I'm getting this correct. He was diagnosed with some form of cancer and he refused all treatment. He said, nope, I'm just going to ride this out. I'm just going to go through it. And that's exactly what he did. He died, I believe, in Los Angeles, surrounded by people he loved, and I'm going to the next thing. And I'm going to embrace every step of this. Like, I don't want to run from any of it. Like, I'm going to, I guess it would depend on anyone's situation, but he made that choice. And it's interesting. It's interesting to have that mentality. And I brought this up in another podcast. I'm going to bring it up again, of course, from Anthony DeMello, Awareness. But he talks about death actually is what makes you appreciate life. And he tells the story of the guy who fell off the cliff and he's holding on to like this branch. So he's in impending doom. But in that moment, he noticed there was a beautiful smelling flower, or it was like some type of fruit. And he never realized how good it tasted and smelled to that exact moment, because he knew it was over, but all the other bullshit washed away. And it was just that moment of living. Or when he talked about the AIDS patient who the doctor told him he got 6 months. And sure enough, in 6 months, and he was on his deathbed, he told Anthony DeMello, he's like, this has been the best 6 months of my life, because I finally started to live and enjoy things. And I had a phone conversation with someone earlier. It's like, man, you said it earlier that sometimes nothing is everything. And I'm learning that, man, it is the simplest joys that are absolutely everything. And these things that I thought that I need to work my ass off to get one day, because I need to get there and I need to do this and do that. And if you do that, great. But when you put all your eggs in that basket of your energy, your time, and your thought, what? Just so you can hit this marker of someone going, good job, man. And then guess what? It's on to the next thing 10 seconds later. It's like, life is truly a beautiful thing, man. Like, there's so many great moments. And that's the thing. This moment I'm having with you, dude, it's a grand moment. This is it. This is the thing.
This is it, baby.
This is it, baby. It's like, so, man, like, it really, because I'm not gonna, and dude, again, I'll keep like Moth. What I really liked about it too is you really opened up about some of those. I don't know if fear would be the right word, but like, just like, wow, of like the destruction of the world, and like how this is just going to destroy everything, and some of this is just pointless. Like, what is the point of this? Like, this is just pure chaos, but at the same time, there's beauty within that chaos, and it's trying to get to that place, like you are saying, like, man, just, it's okay. Whatever's coming, it's going to come. So I might as well embrace whatever's coming and just enjoy why I'm here. And that's really changed me a lot, especially, going through the injury this year and just doing all the reading and just reflecting. It's like, man, like, it's really making me to look at different situations and relationships differently in a positive way. And just really, again, I'll go back to really making me realize like how much of a fantasy and illusion was clouding like what I thought of the world, and how it's, you in this society, especially too, like I'm so like, I'm all for like busting your ass. And when you got something you want to do it. I'm all for that. But at the same time, I do feel there's a line where it becomes toxic, and like people, social media, maybe we transition to this, like it causes you to start comparing yourself to everybody and start going, well, this person over here is doing this, this, and this. So I'm not gonna lie, dude. Being straight up with you, there's sometimes you post some just ridiculous, amazing, talented stuff you're doing, playing like 10 different things, and then there I'm like, damn, what did I do today? I mean that with love, but it's like you gotta. I don't know for anyone. I just cannot stress enough like how you are enough. You as an individual are enough, and you don't need to add. Like DeMello says, you don't need to add anything. You need to take away. It's the stuff we've added over the years of conditioning and society and influence that makes us think we're miserable. We're creating our own misery.
Mm-hmm.
Desire, like you said earlier, and things like that. Do it, man. So,
well, social media, I've had such a rocky relationship with. I not looked at it in a week, which has been a long time. When I'm on it, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to take breaks from it, but those usually come after I've been so sucked into it that I'm losing entire days, weeks, probably months. I don't know how much time I've lost to just mindlessly scrolling and just having no purpose and just feeling. I mean, I think it was just when I last deleted it off my phone, I was just like, I caught that awareness that like, wow, I'm really having a miserable afternoon because I'm scrolling on this. And I bet if I delete this off my phone and say, I'm not going to look at it for a couple of days, I'm not even going to look at it for a couple of days, then I'm probably going to see an increase in my contentment levels, that I will probably noticeably feel different. And part of it was that I was comparing myself to people and being like, man, I'm not doing shit with my time, really getting in that judgmental space. And it's like, studies have proven that it does that to people. Like, the solution is easy. Oh shit, I'm not feeling good today and I've been on my phone. Dude, it's an easy solution. Take it off your phone, get off of it, go outside, like stare at the sky for 15 minutes. And I guarantee you, buddy, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel great. And the amount of time I've actually spent, doing shit that I actually enjoy and not thinking about, where it's taking me or how it's, and the whole popularity thing. Like, it really blows my mind because I already, deal with my own insecurities in terms of, and since childhood, that view of feeling like, am I accepted by my peers? Am I going to be rejected or not? And social media is like resurfaces all those childhood insecurities about, popularity as currency, and feel, that agonizing feeling as a kid of feeling like this is what the currency is, and this is what people seem to be enjoying their life more with that currency, and I don't feel like I have that. And you see that and social media is just such a heightened thing of that. But what we were just talking about is like, once I realized that, like, and it really takes some work to realize, to smash that illusion that like people liking you is what gives you value. It's like, no. What gives me value is when I sit and play my guitar by myself sometimes, way more than some schmuck I don't even really understand, and who doesn't understand me. Like, me getting their approval is what I'm banking so much of my contentment off of. No, delete the fucking app and get the boost you feel when it's like, man, I just like playing this fucking instrument. This is fun. Or, oh man, I'm really enjoying reading this book. Or I'm, really enjoying going on this hike. And I just feel, oh God, I don't understand how there are grown ass fucking men, because it's mostly men, who are pushing these new technologies and the meta and the VR world and the and it's like all these like promised solutions to our unhappiness in the form of these technological things is where it's like, is anybody paying attention? Like, we know, we're like, you're beating me over the head with the understanding that this stuff is not good for me. Like, more of it's not gonna fix the thing. We're clearly not, you know, this shit's out of our hands. And like, I want to go back to simplistic living. I don't want to slave to social media, you know, with the desires of the audience there, you know, because I see friends that are desperately trying to make a TikTok career, and you can see it. It's like this. You guys like this? Is this what you like? What about this? You know, and it's in the form of these little 15-second fluff videos that are going to be forgotten about, and it's just like, you're killing your artist inside. You're killing the person inside you that has real deep things to talk about. You know, I'm like, I don't think everything needs to be, you know, deep and socially, you know, I don't think everything needs to be big and conceptual. And I think you could have fluff, but even the fluff we've got is not because, well, hey, I just like fluff and I'm just doing that because this is what's fun. It's like this, you know, it's like we're selling ourselves out so much. And I think that when you spend so much of your time as an artist just trying to pander to like the 15-second attention span of people making stuff that doesn't really mean anything, you know, it's like you're doing it because you understand now that, well, this is how I get somewhere in life. This is how I get somewhere in the industry that I'm trying to compete in, you know, so I got to do these things. Like, what do you do when you get there? What do you do when someone finally, you know, starts paying you good money for your posts and you haven't practiced anything but making stupid, you know, 15-second videos that you're you know, that don't, it's like, what are you practiced in? You know, like that's Chris always said that, you know, the thing that you do the most is what you will be good at. It's like, stop posting your 10-second videos because that's all you're going to be good at. And you're gonna, I do think that runs out. You get to a point where it's like, well, the whole point I was doing this was because so I could finally have the opportunity to do the bigger thing. Fuck it. Then do the bigger thing. Fucking do the bigger thing now. And stop trying to chase this currency. I'm not trying to insult anyone who's doing this. I'm pleading with people for their own sake. Like, don't give in to this fucking monster. Don't give in to this machine. Don't give in to this all the shit that's outside of you. Do what you do. You know, if you like to do that, that's fine. I'm not saying that it's not okay to do that. You know, some people are about that, but I know people that are definitely not about it and don't understand it and are just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that something sticks. And I'm like, you're at the mercy of something that doesn't even understand itself. And you don't understand it. And why are you trying to compete in this? And I mean, I get it. I know why. Because you think you want something. You think that this is the thing that will take you where you want to go. No, it's not. We have to go inward. And a lot of times inward is where our best ideas are. And, you know, yeah, okay, you get a few successes with some small things here and there. And, you know, I'm not saying that it's always not workable, but I've seen a lot of artists that I think have a lot of talent that are not rising to the challenge of really throwing all that weight behind something that they really believe in and saying, I'm going to put everything I am into this bigger, fuller project that speaks more to who I am than trying to sell myself as something on this platform. If they're like me, if they look at the world I do, if they have as much to say as I do, then I think they should do that. They should throw their weight behind their bigger works, their bigger passions, and accept if it doesn't go anywhere for a while and really hone in on those things. They might just have nothing to say. And that's why the things work. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that people really have that little to say, that we're that much of a uninspired society. I generally feel like the media landscape, the artistic landscape, is incredibly uninspired. And I feel like an old man, and I feel like a curmudgeon when I say that shit, you know? But it's like, you can't get more uninspired than having like 3 reboots within like a decade of something, you know? And that's where we're at, where everything is a reboot of something we just had. It's the same idea being hashed over and over. And if you think I'm wrong in that regard, look at TikTok. I mean, it's everyone lip syncing to the same thing. It almost feels like there's this big cultural entity that has come in and said, hey, you know what would be great if we all did the same thing? If all of us just did the same thing. You know, and it's like, but there's so many good, you go on Wikipedia. If you just do random article a bunch of times on Wikipedia, you'd be like, whoa, you could make a movie out of this. Whoa, you could make a movie out of this. Whoa, this is interesting. No one's doing that. It's like, hey, you want to see the same superhero that we've been cramming down your throats the last 20 years? Here's another one. It's just the same shit. It's so uninspired, and it's depressing the shit out of me.
Oh,
wow, dude. Jesus
that
Christ.
that was amazing.
I did not really want to go there, but I had to.
Oh,
I
we're
guess.
there now.
Yes, I had to.
Well, to add on to some of what you were saying, in terms of like, I found, and I'll speak for myself, I have caught myself creating content for social media instead of creating content I want to create. And I've caught myself in that now. So, because now doing this podcast, like for example, I'm not doing this for social media. I'm doing this because I want to do this podcast. Social media is just the outlet I'm going to choose to share it at. But when you're doing stuff for the quote unquote gram, and I will, anyone who's followed me for a while, you know that I've done a lot for the gram, and it's entertaining. It's fun. Like, it's fun to do things. I posted a picture with this Christopher Walken shirt I'm wearing for the holidays. That was for the gram. Like, that was for, hey guys, happy. But it's like, if you're doing that every day and you're doing it all the time, and like, look, I'm not saying you can't do it once in a while. It's just like, you really lose yourself. And I think you really, like you said, like, you water down like your true creativity. And it's something else I wanted to add on to everything you're saying is, like, for me, again, personally, I've really analyzed a lot of my intentions of posting. And I don't know if you really, and it's humbling, because I'm like, man, like, thirst traps, for lack of a, I'll use that as an example. Like, women and men both do it. And I'm really rethinking that whole thing. And I'm thinking about, man, I used to do it all the time, but now it's like, I'm like, whoa, okay. If you want a woman that's a good, down-to-earth woman, you think they're going to want a guy that's constantly advertising himself to women like that? And on the other end of the stick, do you want a woman that's constantly advertising herself in those ways? And it's not that you can't express yourself and post certain things, but I'm just noticing some potholes. I've definitely, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about continuing to go down the same road. Social media for me has been one of those things where I'll know it's not good for me at times. I'll go, okay, I'll take this big break, I'll make it better. But then if I get back on and I start doing the same things over and over again that I've always done on it, you're not fixing the problem. Like, you're not addressing it. And you're right. It's like, it's just swallowing everything up. And the more like ancient texts I read, and the more like information I'm gathering from books and other things, it's like, look, I think social media and technology are great tools when used correctly, but what are we losing amidst all that? Like, I'm with you on the whole metaverse shit and like all that. It's like, they're trying to convince you that reality sucks. So here, put on this VR headset and you're just going to sit in that chair all day long. I don't think that's good for humanity, man. I don't think that's going to end well, whether we see it or not in our lifetime.
We're not evolved for that. And I don't think that it's one of those things that necessarily is ultimately bad. It's weird because, like, I've been watching a lot of videos about space and quantum theory and particle physics and all this crazy shit, and been very interested in kind of the grand scope of everything, and a lot of it is, where do we come from, where are we going in terms of evolution, in terms of universal physics and all those things. And one of the interesting things as I was kind of digging was seeing like predictions about what life will eventually evolve into. And thinking that like, well, the us evolving into and passing the torch onto artificial intelligence, it might be as crucial to the universe as the creatures that climbed out of the ooze, passed the torch on to us, and then went extinct. So it's like this idea that like, well, for me to say like, well, it's not good for us to move in this technological direction, because it's like, well, maybe that's just the course of evolution. Maybe we're not the end, and it's that, it goes back to that book Ishmael, which talks about the fact that the sacredness of man that man puts on himself. And so I can see in the ways in which my resistance to these things that like, okay, well, maybe theoretically this is the next step. And maybe I'm just being resistant to it because it scares me. But I know it's not good for me. Me personally, I don't believe that I'm going to live a as enriched life through this beta program of metaverse crap, whatever. I don't know. I think that being able to, prioritize going outside, spending time in nature while it's still here, and living that simple life is all I need. And maybe I'm at odds with like, I don't think it's good or bad, the idea of us, of the evolutional torch being passed on to artificial intelligence or mechanical technology as life. I don't think it's, I think it's good or bad is relative to us and how we feel about it. And how we feel about what happens in the universe is largely insignificant, So I'm not sure how I feel about the whole thing, but I know that it's not something I'm really keen to live in. It's not a world that I want. I don't know that it's necessarily healthy for us. I don't think that us being the last link in evolutionary progress is important to anyone but us. So it's a weird dichotomy. It's a weird dissonance that I have about it, where it's like, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters to me. As an individual, it matters to me. I don't fucking want to be plugged into something that, it's the fucking Matrix, dude. We got movies about this shit. They're making the Matrix right now. They made 4 movies about this shit. I don't know. Maybe it's good, maybe I don't know, but I just, the writing on the wall is not good.
You said something very interesting earlier that made me think. Well, the whole thing about we're the bridge to the next thing of the evolutionary chain, that was crazy. But then you said that we lived in we arguably lived in the best time period ever. Like, seriously, like probably the safest, most whatever. And then now things are changing. And I like what you said too, when people are like, I wanted to go back to normal, but it's like, well, this is your life now. Like there's like when you look through history and some of the things that have happened, and see, and it's crazy that what's happening now is happening to us, because these are things you just read about in books. That, back in the whatever this happened. Oh, that must have been bad, but it's not like that now. And then now we're dealing with stuff that we weren't accustomed to. And it's like, oh no, it's like, there's times where I still like kind of sit and reflect. I'm like, yeah, no, this all happened. Like this is all happening, and for better or for worse, like it's happening regardless. Things changed. And no matter what happens moving forward, I think there's just going to be some things that are not coming back and some things that are now introduced that are here to stay for now, at least for us. So yeah, man, I don't know.
I remember, I think it was earlier this year when that like climate report came out that was basically saying like, we might be fucked. Might be beyond help at this point. It was really sobering. And I just remember driving to a rehearsal for something, and I was just looking at the sky, looking at the trees as if they were already gone. You know, I was sobbing in my car, just being like, fuck. You know, you don't really know what you got till it's gone. And it's not gone. I think that's one thing I needed to really check in with and realize, like, everybody's saying like, oh God, I can't wait till this pandemic is over. And I'm like, man, be careful what you wish for, you know, in terms of it being like, I could say, well, I can't wait till this pandemic is over, but I'm looking forward. And you know what's forward? More problems with the climate, which is like, there's something with me that says, well, I'm willing to, this is fine if this goes a little slow right now. If time goes a little slow, like I'm okay going outside and appreciating exactly what this is right now. Because it's like, hey, fast forward to when this is over. You're also fast forwarding to potentially our climate not existing anymore. And the beautiful trees and all the birds and all the like beautiful, innocent and just all this stuff that exists out here in the natural world that has just been so tranquilly balanced for so long. For longer than we, you know, largely longer than we've existed. I'm pretty sure, like, for as long as we've existed, humans in particular, and it doesn't even realize, you know, it's just going about its thing, and it's sort of like this, it's like this heartbreaking feeling to look at the trees and to realize how much I appreciate them and how much I don't want to live in a world without them. I don't want to live in a world without all the pretty green plants and the blue skies and the purple and pink flowers and the hummingbirds flying around outside and even the little raccoons that get into our trash and the little squirrels that take nuts out of our hands when, you know, when we're sitting out front, and, you know, the coyotes that I can hear howling running through the neighborhood, and the owls that I see in Griffith Park when I go there, or the tarantulas that sometimes come out of the ground. Like, all this life, even in this city, there's so much, and it has, and it's just, you know, if nothing happens, it's going to be gone very soon. And, you know, you sit here and you think, well, fuck, I can't enjoy my life until this pandemic is over. Yes, you fucking can. Yes, you can. Stop bitching about this stupid pandemic. Yes, it sucks. I agree, it sucks. It sucks that I couldn't eat indoors at Fred 62 last night, and I had to eat outdoors. It was cold. Like, yeah, that sucks. But god damn it, like, this could be the last couple of years of beautiful, peaceful, serene environment. My parents are in St. Louis. It's 68. It should be snowing. It's 68. We had what, like 5 tornadoes that ripped through the south and southeast and Midwest area in December. Like, dude, we are fast approaching the fucking apocalypse. You drive through fucking the desert. I spent 7 hours driving from Las Vegas to LA. Both round, like two took about 6 hours. Back took about 7. I was in gridlock traffic in the middle of the fucking desert. Like, we don't need to get back to this stupid economic, like, whatever. Like, yes, we do, but, like, fuck, dude. We just do not know how to appreciate what we have. And we're really going to miss it when it's gone. And it's vastly disappearing. I don't know what to do about it other than to just be like, well, this is pretty all right. I'm pretty okay with how everything is right now. I can live with this because it may only get worse. And as we talked about, I want to be okay with that too. And it starts with fucking appreciating what's happening right here and right now. Go outside, smell a flower, hug a tree. I don't know.
Well, I think what you say is just a great analogy for life in general. I mean, dude, I really felt that. Like, I want this to be over so I can get to this, but like you said, you're wanting to fast forward your present moment right now. And like you said, like in anything in life, man, once you get rid of one thing, another thing's going to pop up. So even if this pandemic does get over, quote unquote, it's like the new thing's going to pop right up. And I'm really glad you said that. Gave me a lot of perspective on just really making the most of your life now and enjoying what is in front of you now, you know? So
I'm not necessarily very good at it yet. I still have a lot of work to do, you know. If social media's on my phone, I'm sucked into that and I'm not going to the park. Like, that happens to me all the time. I spend more time staring at a screen than I do staring at the sky. You know, so, I mean, I'm saying all this to myself too. It's just, it's sad. It's sad to see like how out of control it feels like things are going. And I think it's easy also to make things out to be worse than they are. And I think that's categorized by the fact that I was, well, like I said in that story, driving home and looking at the trees as if they were already gone. They're not. I have today. I have tomorrow. I have the next day. It's so long as I'm alive, so long as, you know, something maybe I don't, but, you know, I have right now. They're not gone yet. I still have them. It's not as catastrophic as I don't have to jump the gun and catastrophize it, because that's going in the opposite direction too of what we've been talking about. But I don't know. It's just, things are going to get chaotic, and they already are chaotic, and I'm managing okay in this chaos. I'll be okay in the next form of chaos, the next tier, the next level. I can be okay with that. I could say, fucking hate social media and I fucking hate the metaverse and I don't want to do any of this crap. But that is in motion. I can't do anything about that. I don't know what that world will look like. I have to learn to be okay with the world turning into that too. I just have to, you know, engage with it on the terms that I'm comfortable. Whatever those are.
And that's where that inner work comes in, right? Like, that's where, yeah, the world around you is going to change no matter what. It's, what are you inside? And it's all perspective. I mean, dude, if you got solid foundation and solid grounding, and yeah, even if stuff happening around you, like, man, I'm not with this or that. It's like, well, at least though I have perspective on this, and I don't feel hopeless, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Like, perspective perspective is pretty powerful. It's like, it really is. Like, you can look at things two people can look at the same thing, and I think you've seen the meme, right? Where one person's looking out the window and it's doom and gloom, and the other person's looking out the window and it's all bright. And then people have been making memes, like making fun of it. But the general concept is like, we really do create our own personal hells and heavens on earth, I think. A lot of times. A lot of it's self-induced. Now, look, that's not to say crazy, bad shit doesn't happen, because it does. But there is a lot of self-induced things we do to ourselves that make us miserable and a bunch of other things.
Yeah. I think my goal now in life is to be that character on the right side of that panel no matter what. Very hard to accomplish, but like, I want to be that guy looking out the window with a camera in my hand, smiling, even if it's rock wall.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and I'm getting better at that. And that's what's so exciting to me, is that, like, I have found myself recently, like, really tapping into that in a real way for the first time, where I'm like, have a hard day and something goes wrong, and I get emotional for a sec, and then I check in with my awareness and I realize where I am, and I might start crying and laughing and, like, being like, life is great. Life is fucking awesome. Like, I'll take this. This is great. Walking, I was walking around my neighborhood last night. It was super quiet. No one was out. I was all alone. And I was like, man, I am more alone than I've ever been on Christmas Eve. Like, this is the most, like, lonely Christmas Eve I've ever had. But, like, I'm okay. Fuck, I'm alive. Like, the air is fresh. I'm experiencing, I'm feeling things. This is fine. This is great. Like, I didn't disregard the fact that I was like, man, I wish I was with my parents. I would much rather be with my sister. I would love to have a significant other to go out to eat with me and be all cute with. And, thinking in my head, like, well, if that never happens again in my life, that's okay. I had those things at one point. I've had those wonderful moments, and I know what that feels like. And I'd see a couple, walking arm in arm, and the girl might lean up against the guy and cuddle up with him, and then reach and kiss his cheek or something. And then, of course, the first initial thought is like, man, I would love to be experiencing something like that right now. But then watching someone else experience it, and then choosing to be like, well, at least they have it. At least they get to have that. I've had that before. I know what that feels like, and that feels pretty good. And I'm glad that they get to go through that. And, like, choosing that, like, rewards you in a weird way. And it's like, oh man, if I'm, like, happy for others, I'm giving myself something. And if I'm okay with whatever, again, it comes back to that, like, unconditional. Like, well, my condition would be having people to spend Christmas with. In the flesh, people that I'm really close with and care. Well, that condition isn't being met, and I'm still okay, and I'm still happy, and I still fucking love life anyway. I'm being unconditionally happy right now. And that's it, man. I think that's the key. It's like chasing that realization and that kind of feeling towards life. So liberating.
That's beautiful, man. And you know what, man? We've now officially set the record.
Oh yeah.
Of longest podcast on the standard. But we could double this, I'm sure.
What time is it?
It's 8:22. I know. I think you got stuff in the morning.
I can keep going. It's up to you. I got at least some. Whatever you want to do, I don't care.
Well, one thing I'll say on what you just, Chris Clark said this on the last podcast, like, when you do see someone, like, successful at something or something good happens to them, and like you said, seeing the couple, like, getting all cute, instead of having, like, that type of attitude, whatever, man, give props, like, give love and give energy, because when you do that, you're putting yourself in that same vibration they're in. Mm-hmm. So I really feel that, man. Like, I really feel that, especially, like, when you see someone that that's been single for a long time, or maybe you even once dated them and didn't work out, but you remain friends. But then they find a person where it really connects, and they just become joyous. I mean, dude, that's awesome. Like, that's awesome, man. And like, I love what you said. Like, I mean, yeah, I've had those moments in my life too, where I'm like, I look back at my life, and I know we've lived our own individual lives and had lots of interesting experiences, probably to say the least. And it's like, I look back, man, and I'm like, man, if it were to end today, I can't complain. I can't complain. I got to do and experience a lot of cool shit. People, experiences, romances, like art. Dude, I got to do a lot of cool shit. So just having that mind frame, yeah, you're right about the freeing part, and just being happy with whatever is now, and understanding that there is seasons to life. A lot of times, yeah, you might have a lot of things going on in your life, and then it calms down for a while. Maybe it's not like that, but you find yourself, when you're happy in those moments, and when those things do start to come back, boy, do you appreciate them more than you ever have in your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's it. Like, I've done everything that I could have ever really wanted to do. I try to, it's been something I'm working on doing, is like, I mean, truthfully, I don't have to have accomplished anything for my life to be meaningful. I think just existing is, what we're asked to do. We're asked to participate. And I think just showing up, existing for a day is all that was asked of anyone who was born. Some people don't make it a couple of hours, babies die shortly after being born. And I shudder to think that that meaning is only afforded to people who have enough time and resources to allocate it for themselves. That it's just inherent, just the fact that you exist. Meaningful or meaningless, either way, it's the same thing. I think it's just beautiful, however you want to look at it. Personally, I look at it in that positive sense. It's just beautiful. But I'm trying to adopt the mindset of like, I've done it. All of my accomplishments, I've done everything that I really wanted to do ever in my life, that I could have wanted to do, and now everything I do now is just surplus. And I think a lot of it is just that it's that ego thing. The reason why we get discontented with things is that egotistical pursuit, or that, it's that part of us that wants to protect us and make sure that we're comfortable and safe and okay. But it conflates a lot of things, and it confuses itself, and it doesn't know that some things are harming us rather than helping us. And like, looking at people and not being happy for them. And I'm guilty of that plenty of the time. Looking at, and the whole popularity idea. Seeing people who seem like the haves, and you feel like a have-not, and you go, fuck those people. Fuck, God, why can't they suffer like I do? Then you realize, well, there's people looking at me like that. And that this is all in my head, and that none of it really works that way. And I should just be happy for everyone and also recognize that people who seem externally happy are not as happy as, and I may have something that makes my life more comfortable to me than theirs is to them, and that their circumstances are irrelevant to my life. And if it looks like they're having a good time, no matter who they are, I should be happy for them. Because I would want people to be happy for me when things go well in my life. I wouldn't want someone to look at me and and I know that happens. I know that there are people that want to see me fail, but I know that that's not because they are shitty people, and it's not because I'm shitty and don't deserve the things that I get. It's a sadness that people experience that. It's a sadness when I experience that. Bitterness or jealousy or resentment. Those are really poisonous things that are so overcomable. we don't have to live with that shit.
I want to try something different I've never done on here before. And if this takes too long, I will edit this out.
All right.
But there's this book called, and guess who told me about it? Of course, you probably already know. Rita told me about The Greatest Salesman in the World. And actually, Matthew McConaughey mentions this book in Green Lights by O.G. Mandino. And long story short, it's like kind of like you read like one of these scrolls, quote unquote, a month out loud multiple times a day. And this scroll that I'm on this month is all about living this day as if it's your last. And I just feel it really would go with the flavor of what this conversation has been. And again, if this is too long, I'll edit this, but I will live this day as if it is my last. And what shall I do with this last precious day which remains in my keeping? First, I will seal up its container of life so that not one drop spills itself upon the sand. I will waste not a moment mourning yesterday's misfortunes, yesterday's defeats, yesterday's aches of the heart, for why should I throw good after bad? Can sand flow upward in the hourglass? Will the sun rise where it sets and set where it rises? Can I relive the errors of yesterday and right them? Can I call back yesterday's wounds and make them whole? Can I become younger than yesterday? Can I take back the evil that was spoken, the blows that were struck, the pain that was caused? No. Yesterday is buried forever, and I will think of it no more. I will live this day as if it is my last. And what then shall I do? Forgetting yesterday, neither will I think of tomorrow. Why should I throw now after maybe? Can tomorrow's sand flow through the glass before today's? Will the sun rise twice this morning? Can I perform tomorrow's deeds while standing in today's path? Can I place tomorrow's gold in today's purse? Can tomorrow's child be born today? Can tomorrow's death cast its shadow backward and darken today's joy? Should I concern myself over events which I may never witness? Should I torment myself with problems that may never come to pass? No. Tomorrow lies buried with yesterday, and I will think of it no more. I will live this day as if it is my last. This day is all I have, and these hours are now my eternity. I greet this sunrise with cries of joy as a prisoner who is reprieved from death. I lift my arms with thanks for the priceless gift of a new day. So too I will beat upon my heart with gratitude as I considered all who greeted yesterday's sunrise, who are no longer with the living today. I am indeed a fortunate man, and today's hours are but a bonus undeserved. Why have I been allowed to live this extra day when others far better than I have departed? Is it they have accomplished their purpose while mine is yet to be achieved? Is this another opportunity for me to become the man I know I can be? Is there a purpose in nature? Is this my day to excel? I will live this day as if it is my last. I have but one life, and life is not but a measurement of time. When I waste one, I destroy the other. If I waste today, I destroy the last page of my life. Therefore, each hour of this day I will cherish, for it can never return. It cannot be banked today to be withdrawn for the morrow. For who can trap the wind? Each minute of this day will I grasp with both hands and fondle with love, for its value is beyond price. What dying man can purchase another breath, though he willingly give all his gold? What price dare I place on the hours ahead? I will make them priceless. I will live this day as if it is my last. I will avoid with fury the killers of time. Procrastination I will destroy with action. Doubt I will bury under faith. Fear I will dismember with confidence. Where there are idle mouths I will listen not. Where there are idle hands I will linger not. Where there are idle bodies I will visit not. Henceforth I know that to court idleness is to steal food, clothing, and warmth from those I love. I am not a thief. I am a man of love, and today is my last chance to prove my love and my greatness. I will live this day as if it is my last. The duties of today I shall fulfill today. Today I shall fondle my children while they are young. Tomorrow they will be gone, and so will I. Today I shall embrace my woman with sweet kisses. Tomorrow she will be gone, and so will I. Today I shall lift up a friend in need. Tomorrow he will no longer cry for help, nor will I hear his cries. Today I shall give myself in sacrifice and work. Tomorrow I will have nothing to give, and there will be none to receive. I will live this day as if it is my last. And if it's my last, it will be my greatest monument. This day I will make the best day of my life. This day I will drink every minute to its full. I will savor its taste and give thanks. I will make it every hour count, and each minute I will trade only for something of value. I will labor harder than ever before and push my muscles until they cry for relief, and then I will continue. I will make more calls than ever before. I will sell more goods than ever before. I will earn more gold than ever before. Each minute of today will be more fruitful than hours of yesterday. My last must be my best. I will live this day as if it is my last, and if it is not, I shall fall to my knees and give thanks.
Oh, it was so good.
That's really changed, like just reading that this past month. It's like really like just wakes you up to like, dude, this today might be it. You think you got a bunch of time, but you really don't.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's interesting that we're very terrified of the apocalypse too, which is, it's something that's on everybody's mind these days. And it's like, well, if you go, or if everyone, like, if you could die crossing the street tomorrow, how is that any different to you than the world? I mean, I think that that gets into the question of biologically why we're programmed to keep species going, and there's some attachment to this as a whole, but I think it's interesting as I have started to feel my anxiety about the coming years, and then try to respond to that anxiety by saying, well, prepare yourself for anything. What it reminds me is like, well, shit. Okay, the world could end in climate disaster in 50 years, or I could die tomorrow. Like, it's not just my antidote to dealing with the anxiety of what's happening, though. It's also my antidote to dealing with the fact that, like, I take death for granted, and I don't want to do that. I want to embrace it. I want to face it. I love how Timothy Leary went towards death, and I want to do that. I'm inspired by that. I want to, I want to experience. I don't want to die quick and painless. Like, I might regret saying that when I'm actually in a situation and I'm dying slowly and painfully. But I can't know what that's like until I'm there anyway, and it's easy for me to say that I've got the courage to face that kind of thing sitting in this comfortable chair, But regardless, it reminds me, it's like, well, shit, whether or not the world's going to end in 50 years, my life is finite either way. And I have to live it. Like, it's and I've heard so many people say that, like, and only now am I really starting to kind of tune into that and realize, like, fuck, life is fine. Especially when you start to get into your 30s and you realize that, like, it's a downslope. You're not. Bless you. You're not in your 20s anymore. You're not young and invincible, and your body can do whatever. You're starting to see it slow down. You're like, oh shit, this ain't gonna last forever. I gotta get my mind around this. Because I'm just gonna panic more and more the more it dissolves, and the more the more I decay. So
someone said something. Someone said something once, like when you see a really old person. Oh God, I hope I word this right. Like how big of an achievement that is to make it to like your 80s, 90s, 100. Like, dude, you got past a lot of shit. Because you think about how many people don't make it there, a lot. And
yeah,
it's like, oh, this is what it was. They were saying that like wrinkles and old age is beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful thing because it shows a human being that's been through so much life and they're still here.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like, I know what you mean. Like, that's why, it's health is wealth and it's key to take care of yourself. But yes, the older you get, I mean, dude, if my sleep schedule, I'm off like by even an hour, I feel it the next day, like all of it. So it's like, I'm way more sore than what I used to be.
Yeah.
Doing certain things. So you remind me of a Terrence McKenna lecture I listened to, another brilliant man. He always talked about, the people that are the end's coming and this, that, and the other. And he goes, well, that's pretty egotistical a lot of times to think that the end of the actual everything, is going to happen in your lifetime based upon, like, as you said, it's finite. Like, well, 50 years, give or take, that's quite pretty most likely going to happen to a lot of us. But I think it's a balance, though, like you said, because at the same time, too, well, you do want to leave things in proper order for the next group. There's kind of like a courtesy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, clean off your gym equipment before the next person gets on. I don't know, but it's a balance.
I think it's interesting. I think it might be telling about how we actually view death. And I think most of us maybe have the idea that I think if you tell someone they're going to die in 50 years, they might be like, okay, that's plausible. But if you tell them none of this will be here in 50 years, that's a lot more shocking and terrifying. And I think that there's some comfort in the fact that this is going to be here after we're gone. Why is that comforting if we know that we're going to be gone and we won't be able to witness it? Maybe we don't really know that. Maybe we still believe in some degree that we'll be able to still hang on to this. So it makes me wonder, like, are most of us really prepared for death? I think you're probably not prepared for death if the idea of apocalypse scares you. It more than just dying does, because you're used to the idea of dying, but maybe you've created what that means in your own mind, because that none of this being here really gives the idea of finality. That feels more final than just me dying. And I think that death is final either way. And so I'm wondering if maybe, like, that is an indication, either that or we have some kind of premonition or understanding that death is not really the end. But if that's true, then the apocalypse shouldn't matter anyway, because we all know that we'll all still exist beyond it. So I don't know. I suspect that it's an indication to me that I don't really grasp the gravity of what death really is, which is a full-on end. I mean, maybe it isn't. I don't believe that it's the end. I think it's the end of my conscious personality as it exists right now. And I'm okay. I believe that I am a life force. And when I die, I will continue to be a force, I'm sure, but just not a life force. I will still integrate into all of the totality of everything, just not in this form, and probably not with these thoughts.
You remind me, and this is a lot shorter, I promise you, Marcus Aurelius Meditations, how he ends this translation. He says, "You've lived as a citizen in a great city. 5 years or 100, what's the difference? The laws make no distinction. And to be sent away from it, not by a tyrant or dishonest judge, but by nature, who first invited you in. Why is that so terrible? Like I don't know what this word exactly is, like the impresario ringing down the curtain on an actor. But I've only gotten through 3 acts. Yes, this will be a drama in 3 acts. The lengths fixed by the power that directed your creation and now directs your dissolution. Neither was yours to determine. So make your exit with grace, the same grace shown to you."
Oh, damn, that's good.
Because, yeah, you're like, what was this before? And then now we're getting to a whole other realm, like past lives and things like that. But like in terms of consciousness, like, that's what, have you seen the movie Mr. Nobody with Jared Leto, however you pronounce his name? Really crazy concept. But like a lot of people think, or I've read that when babies are born, they have full consciousness of their past life, but they can't talk about it. So they're just like, and Someone, it was a meme actually. Someone's like, what if babies crying was actually that person still going through their death in the last life? And then all of a sudden you're born, like Enter the Void. Like Enter the Void, it talks about Tibetan Book of the Dead and all that. And it's like, it's a two-way street with it, because it's scary, but at the same time it is kind of calming. It's like, well, dude, what was it like before you were born? You're like, well, nothing. It was like, well, maybe nothing. But it's like, I personally like to think, I can't tell you what it is. I like to think we're traveling on to the next thing, whatever that is. And part of me is like, man, I wonder if I have a guess, if I'm kind of close, or is it going to be something just so wildly different I never would have predicted? And that being said, will I even have the consciousness to even recognize it? Or will this consciousness and memories and everything I have just be wiped?
Yeah. I mean, how do you know that hasn't already happened? You know? Yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip to think that, like, I could have lived a million lives already and have no knowledge of it. It's frustrating to imagine that that's true, and to feel like, well, is there ever going to be a point where I'm aware of this life and the life that came before? Or, you know, but it's like, well, I guess it just doesn't matter. You know, there's nothing I can do about it in this moment, so might as well not worry about it. It's fun to think about, though. I definitely think about it a lot. I think it could be very likely that, well, shit. I have a lot of thoughts on this right now, but I'm hesitant to share them because a lot of it has to do with the show that I'm working on right now.
Oh, okay. So maybe we should.
So, you know, I'm just gonna
give maybe a like a sampler at the grocery store, like a quick bite. What type of flavor are we talking here?
Yeah, I guess I will just say it's a very existential concept. But yeah, my mind is definitely all in this headspace because I've been writing about it nonstop lately. I've been fascinated by death my whole life. Like I think about it constantly. I am so curious about it. I think it's so wildly interesting to me, and because it's just, I think too, in general, I'm very enamored by the incomprehensible. The curiosity in me is there to just like, I want to, like, I was watching one of those space videos the other day, and they were doing one of those things where they zoom out of Earth, and then they start showing you like sort of a grid graph that shows like the distance as they're zooming out. So, you know, like how, and after like a few, just one or two zoom outs, my brain was already just like, okay, well now I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. Like I know, but I cannot visualize it in my head. I can't comprehend it anymore. And I shit you not, I like started crying because it was like kind of devastating to me to realize like, this is all that I can comprehend. Like I want so badly to be able to stand and look at the distance from, and see it with my own eyes, the distance between Earth and the edge of the observable universe, which I just learned what that means, the observable universe. I used to think it means like what we can observe with our tools and instruments, which is like, no, there is the universe so big that what's on the farther reaches of it, like the light from the farthest reaches of the universe, will not reach us in time because the universe will end before it ever does. So like, it's not that we can't observe it with our instrumentation. It's that most likely we will never possibly be able to observe it, no matter what. And that is devastating, because it's like the curiosity in me wants there to be some sort of hope that I will be able to get the answers, that I will be able to die and then come back and be like, okay, well, that's what that is. That, like, I want the answers. I want to see a black hole. I want to know what it's like to cross an event horizon. I want to stay intact. I don't want to die in the fucking ring of radiation before I get there. Like, I want to see what the universe looks like when it freezes at the end. It's just like, I want to know what I want to hold the point that the infinite density, infinite mass that was the universe at a single point. Like, I want to hold it in my hand. I want to see that. I want to see what was outside. It's like, I want to know all of it. And I think that that's part of what's so joyful about being an artist and having an imagination, and realizing as I watch these videos about physics and stuff, realizing it's the same thing. It's like what my twin sister, who's a scientist, does. It's like us engaging with this curiosity and this imagination that we have, which I think is part of what the universe is. The universe is just this creative thing that just likes to do and create, and just like, this is fun. And that's why when we tap into our creative selves and are just like, oh my God, this is fun, we're just doing that which is our inheritance and our heritage and our lineage, our pedigrees, to do that, to just create, because that's what we come from. That's all of this is. It's just one big fucking art project, And we're just like the fractals in that, We're just like in the minuscule design. We're just the replication of that creativity, doing it, replicating it outward from ourselves in smaller fractals, Oh, it's wild.
That blew my mind. And then I'm picturing you at your keyboard or your guitar or whatever you're doing, just universing it up.
Yeah. Woo!
Oh, well, Ford Fanter. Before I always give the guests the last word. Before I do that, though, where can people follow you, and how can they get the book Moth?
You can follow me at Ford Fanter on Instagram. That's pretty much the only social media outlet that I use. The book can be purchased Amazon, which is not my preferred method, just because I think they're too big and evil as it is. But it's there, so I'm not gonna lie. I make a tiny profit every time one is bought from Amazon, but not much. Barnes & Noble is probably the better place to go. They usually ship it faster. You can buy it online at Barnes & Noble. You could probably do your local bookstore. If you go to their website and search for the book, it's usually available online. You just have to order it. They will send it to the bookstore, and you can pick it up. That's how I did it. My little local bookstore, Skylight Books in Los Feliz, which I love.
Dude, and I just want to say, man, real quick too, like, because I know we were both on our own for Christmas and all that right now, but dude, I can't think of a more beautiful way to have spent this Christmas night than on Zoom. And we could talk for 8 hours, and you're someone I want to continuously bring on always. And
oh man, it's always so much fun. We could just talk about anything for hours and hours and hours. I was thinking about this. I was like, man, there was something we didn't even scratch the surface on that we could have talked at length about and didn't. And so we just kept to what was pressing and what was eating
what was present. And we didn't scratch the surface on a lot, and we didn't bring up a lot of stuff we usually talk about too. But I'm like, well, we'll do it next time. Maybe, unless we get sidetracked into something else. But dude, we
didn't talk about dating hardly at all.
Well, you got anything to say about it? Is there anything on your mind with it while you're
not really? I think kind of where my mind is generally being unconditional. So that is transferred into my relationships. I've realized that a lot of times I was dating maybe someone to get something out of them. Realizing that a lot of my dating efforts were me focused and not really, hey, we're sharing something. And I'm realizing, well, until I really found out how to meet my own needs, I'm not really interested in going out of my way to meet somebody or to fill a relationship hole. Cause I'm like, if I'm feeling lonely, it means I need to confront a deficit within myself. And I think you've echoed that too. And, you know, you shared with me some beautiful thoughts about being with someone and giving them something. And that was so profound and beautiful because it made me really realize, like, wow, I've mostly just taken from people or been interested in taking and not really interested in being like, I am just here to provide something for this person. Maybe sometimes I have done that, but not in a large scale and truly earnest effort, I don't think. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to expound upon some of that, just talking for me personally, I've come to light as of late. Again, back to what I was saying. We've been talking for almost 3 hours, so I don't know what time marker we'll be at, but I love this though. You know, you keep acting a certain way. And I kept acting a certain way, and I kept going back to a same result. And, you know, it's like us as men, and I can't speak for women, but I'm sure they echo the same to themselves about men, but we all want this quote unquote perfect mate. And I've come to the conclusion and realize that this perfect mate doesn't exist. And that's what I think online dating and stuff has really damaged a lot of people. And I know I talk trash on online dating at times, but look, I've used it several times. It can be really good for a lot of people, and you can meet people. I don't want to, but it's like social media though. There's really bad consequences and side effects to it of like, okay, I live in this age where I have 10,000 options. You know, if I don't like this person over here, or they're only a 9 out of 10, guess what? There's going to be a 10 out of 10 out there on that scale. And I'm realizing that when you learn to accept, like, now look, there's non-negotiables, right? Like if someone's a meth head, I'm not going to partake in that. That's a non-negotiable for me. No, that's not going to happen. But like, look, man, I think it's beautiful when you guys have a lot of common ground, but then they're into some stuff you're not into, and you're into some stuff they're not into. But like these apps and stuff make it think like, well, you're a 78% compatibility with this person and a 92, but I've never said motherfucker on the podcast, but I guess I just did. It's like, dude, man, you cannot deny chemistry, my brother. And it's like, oh, now maybe we're going to keep going now. Cause it's like, dude, and I came to that realization, like, why am I trying to overanalyze and do? Man, dude, when you got the feeling and you got the chemistry, and yeah, you got to use your head too, but it's like, I realized when I started to let go of all these ideas of what I thought I was entitled to and what I thought I deserved, and then actually looking myself in the mirror, I'm like, look, are you the type of mate that a woman's even going to want? You know? And I'm not, it's like, what type of man are you going to be? And I'm like, I'm thinking different, man. I'm like, I don't want casual hookups anymore. I want some more serious shit now. And it's not like I'm that or bust. Like I'm open to whatever happens, but it's like to get certain things, you got to have a certain mindset too. And I'm realizing that. And I haven't had the mindset. I've just been stuck in this circle and cycle of just trying to sexify myself. That's not even a word. Sexualize myself online, you know, getting the best photos and the best this. And I mean, dude, maybe I'm preaching to the choir in terms of you. I mean, you take a hell of a photo, sir. Hey, look, I'm a heterosexual man. You've posted a few things. I'm like, damn, Ford's good looking. But you know what I mean? Like, and as actors and stuff, we overdo it. We just post. I don't want to. You don't have to post a headshot every single post. Like, it's like, and then I look women, what they're doing on their end, posting like, quote unquote, can be scandalous. And I don't say that to like knock them down. It's like, but that we're both doing the same thing. And it's like, but at the end of the day, I think if we could both like be honest with both of ourselves and like, man, I would just like to find someone that I can just be myself around, and I don't have to put on this act anymore. And I don't have to like, I can just be me and we can just enjoy this life. That was a lot of shit, but it's like, that's just kind of where the epiphany I've had is just like, And then again, that's why I really related to what you said about everyone worrying about when the pandemic's over. Well, I'll take that same analogy in the realm of dating. Like, well, when I get to this point, that's when I'm going to have like a good relationship, but dude, what if the good relationship's in front of your face right now? And that's the shit, man, that as of late, it's been like a church bell. Dong. It just makes you look at it differently. Like, you know, you're chasing and you're thinking that you're going to have this perfect thing with someone that doesn't even exist yet, as opposed to, hey, man, maybe there's a lot of good people around you right now that you can have these things with, but you've been so tainted with this illusion of superficial fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to chase that till the day you die, because you're never going to be satisfied from it. It's just going to be constant pleasure chasing. So I don't know if that had anything to do with dating.
Oh, it did have everything to do with dating.
So it's like, but I love what you said about the Christmas Eve thing. It's like, you know, there's those moments in life where you're going to be alone. We came in alone, we're going to die alone. But the more you can get comfortable being alone, I feel the more valuable you are going to be to another person when you guys do connect, because you're just going to be so much more well-grounded in yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll quit talking. I'll let.
No, that's so well put, and such a true, like, it's another one of those illusions. My illusions about dating and what my love life is supposed to look like, and what it is I should be chasing after. And once you realize, like, chasing after emotional maturity, emotional availability, as we were talking about the other day, you know, and I mean, once you really realize how many superficial thoughts you let drive your search, if you will, you know, once you start slowly releasing yourself of that, I think you start to realize, like, oh, well, what I'm really looking for is all around me. You know, I have friendships that can provide me with what I'm searching for. I have my parents, or I have, you know, there are other people in my life that are what I'm really craving in a relationship is some sort of emotional safety. You know, like, yeah, I want to have sex, and I want to like what I'm looking at while you know, it's like that, but like, really, that anything can be superimposed into that experience of, well, there's something that is missing. If I want something, it means something is missing. And is that available to me in another form that I am not presently paying attention to? What is right in front of me that I am ignoring? Or what am I not doing for myself that could fill this? And I think when you really step back and start, you know, instead of saying, well, it has to be under this condition, you know, that love can only happen to me in a situation where I'm in power in this relationship with a beautiful person that I'm sexually attracted to, and, you know, they're impressive and they're impressed by me, and like, that's how it has to. It's like, I mean, you're looking for love, you're looking for safety, you're looking for connection. You can find that in other ways. And when you start looking at it for it in those ways, I think you open yourself up, like you said, to becoming a person that will attract someone that will make sense to you. And then you won't be just about the superficial stuff, and then you'll be able to actually connect with them. Yeah.
Church, man. Yeah, that's I noticed. I said this on the Chico Spitz podcast, I believe. Like, it's crazy that the older I get, the more how I do look for more personality qualities in how a person is now. As of course, like you want to be attracted. That's the whole key to. I mean, that's one of the main factors of romance, is having that. That has to be there. But it's amazing how you can have that as you get older, and then that person, you see their I don't know if flaws is the right word, but like something about it that really turns you off in their personality, and how that completely goes away. Like the attraction, like you totally can lose attraction because,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. And I'm just too, I don't know if it's the Midwest in me. I know you grew up in the Midwest as well, but it's like, I'm at a point now where I'm in no position at all to have a family and do all that. But I'm like, yeah, I do want that with the right person. I'm open about, I never used to like say, I'm like, no, man, I'm going to live my dreams. And people who get married and settle down gave up on everything. And it's like, now I'm looking at all people that grow, I'm like, man, that's freaking awesome. Like you guys figured it out. Like I'm looking at them like you figured it out. Yeah, I've gotten to do some cool shit with the freedom, but it's like, I think when that time comes for me, I'm like, I'm like, all right, like this is okay. Like this is time to embrace this part now of life, if that happens.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? It's just kind of changing that, like losing that. And you and I have had these talks, and this is a whole other thing we can talk about, but just lust and getting out of that lustful mind state. And I've been open about, another thing I'll say about social media, and I'll speak for myself, is it's softcore pornography. A lot of it really is. And it's not even that, I don't even blame women for it. I blame the system of it. Like, cause Instagram and that shove that in your feed. Like they show you, hey, have you seen, and it's just like, it's just everywhere. And I realized just how detached from my sexuality I really became by getting desensitized digitally.
Yeah.
Through just looking at women online all day and like this. And then when you just get away from that and you start interacting with women in real life and getting back to the core and focus on getting to know that person, and then you start to pull away from that and you start to experience the real thing. Oh my God. You're like, what was I doing? Why was I trapped in that matrix of that?
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And there's an inauthenticity to the experience of, I don't know. There when you really start connecting with people one-on-one and the sexual element is introduced and you've had some space away from that which is pornographic in whatever way, that difference is night and day. And oh God, we could go off about porn for a long time, but it's very insidious thing that can really grab a hold of you and dilute your thinking and just your behavior towards the opposite sex, your view of them in general. And that affects every interaction that you have with them, because you've trained yourself to objectify them and see them as an object of your desire or a thing that a toy essentially, and they're not. They're a full, complete human being. And there's so much beyond all that, right? It's like you don't want to, as a straight man, having grown up in the era of internet porn, I'm realizing I didn't want to admit to myself how much I really had reduced women in general to like this object of use or no use to me, and how a lot of my interactions with the opposite sex, it boils down to, or has boiled down to, that exchange or transaction being at the forefront of my mind in some way. And that's just like, it's like, how do you ever have a real relationship with a personal, friend, business, or romantic? How do you really have a real relationship? And I understand why a lot of women feel very upset and very unsafe around men. It's like, have they ever felt a real interaction with a man? I know a lot of girls that have told me that they don't feel that they have ever had an interaction with a man that felt fully, completely safe. without, some undercurrent of that sexual mindset, either being approached because of their sexual promise or being discarded because of their lack of sexual promise. That element playing in to every interaction that we have is very damaging. And so I understand why there is a disconnect. Yeah.
Well, and one other thing about that, it's, this whole rule of, and I've had this talk, and look, I'm again, we'll have to do on the next podcast, we'll be able to dive into the intricacies of all of it. But, I read all different types of stuff, and I read stuff from the quote unquote alpha male communities, and I've told you about some of this stuff, and there's stuff I really like. I think there's some good things that are said, like as far as taking responsibility for yourself and building yourself up, and I'm all for that. But I also feel there's this, like, if she's not giving you sex right away, move on, and like this, that, and the other, and the whole quote unquote, this is just, if you haven't had sex with her by date 3, you're friend zoned. I'm done with that shit. Like I really am. Like I'm like, like sex to me, like the way I'm looking at it now, and especially like as I'm working on, I say working on ... like, is like, no, I don't have to. My goal is not to bust a nut here anymore. I've busted enough nuts in my life. I won't go into too much detail on that, but it's like, well, then I want something else now. Like I want the real deal. And if a woman I'm engaging with, and she really has promise and potential, and I'm really feeling her personality, am I going to throw that away because we're not having sex? No, like I'm not. I'm over that. Like I'm over that. I get the psychology part. I get why they say it, but it's like not every shoe is, or what's the saying? Not one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you do run across special people, not every day, but you do run across those special people where you're like, okay, this shit's different. This shit's different. I'm going to play this different than I've ever played it. And I'm going to play this the right way this time. I'm done with the thing that's always led me to the place I always get to in the end. I'm going to try some different shit.
Yeah.
I blame the thing like the screens and what it leads to and getting trapped in that world. But it's like, I didn't realize how much damage that did to my psyche with sex. I didn't realize, and it's not just that, it's porn. It's looking at Instagram photos of girls, online dating, and checking out all their photos and like, oh, let me zoom in closer so I can see your body. Oh shit, his body's not good enough. Nope, next. Like it's a fucked up way to be, man. And I call myself out on that publicly on this podcast because it's like I'm getting out of that. And I feel like I'm on the other side, hopefully to some degree, but it's like we live in a culture now where sex is viewed as just this frivolous, no big deal thing. And maybe it is sometimes in certain situations, but dude, in other situations, it's the most sacred thing you can have with that partner to some degree. And I'm in a mindset now, like, man, I want that. Like, I guess I'm just saying I'm a monogamous dude at the end of the day. Well, I don't know, dude. That was a lot of weird shit I just threw out there. So I don't
Oh, dude, I love it. First of all, I'm so happy that you have the willingness to call yourself out and to be honest and be vulnerable with that side of yourself. And I think that just shows that you are moving in the right direction because I think it's when we really leave something behind is when we're really able to be honest about it. Because it's instead of, it's easier for me to be like, to open up about my use of porn when I'm, now that I'm ready to leave it behind, because if I still wanted that lifestyle to continue, I would protect it at all costs. And so I would refuse to be honest about it. I would dodge every opportunity to have to actually open up about it. and call myself out for it, because that threatens the relationship that I have with it, that has the potential to do that. But if I don't care about that relationship anymore, I'm not so worried about that. So I commend you for telling those truths, because I think it indicates that you are moving in that direction, and that's a fucking great thing. And I'm very much in the same boat, where like I really want to have emotional connections with people, because I've had enough sex in my life. Not that I don't like having sex, but none of it has really been all that I thought it was going to be, you know? And a lot of it has been a letdown, or a lot of it has just left me with this feeling like something's missing here. And I'm realizing like, well, what I really want is that experience of connecting with someone, allowing myself to trust someone enough to let them in to the more vulnerable sides of me. And that, it sounds very exciting. And then the idea of like having let someone like that in, and then sharing that connected experience, you know, it's a shared emotional experience. You're both going through this extremely heightened emotional and passion-filled experience together. Like, that's a bonding experience. I don't want to engage with that with someone I'm not prepared to bond with, or that I don't even know that well, you know? And I think a lot of us think that bonding experience is what will help us overcome that, like, not knowing someone that well. But it doesn't. It just highlights, I think, how little you know that person, how unsafe you might actually ultimately feel with that person, and that there's work to be done, either in figuring yourself out or strengthening the relationship with that person. A lot of times we don't want to do that, because it's not really what we want in the first place. So yeah, man, thanks for talking about all that shit.
It is, I will say this, it is profound when you said what you just said was beautiful. When you do truly concentrate on the person and getting to know them before engaging in some of those things. And then the physical acts, yes, they're physical acts, but the physical acts now have so much meaning behind it. It's literally an art. It's an art. Like, it's like, I mean, the Kama Sutra, which is back there, it's like, with the right partner, no, like, this is a physical expression of how I feel for you, and I've reserved this for you, and we're going to share this together, as opposed to, I'm just trying to get laid. I'm just trying to fuck. I'm just trying to bust. It's like, dude, like, it's such on a low conscious level. It's so low conscious, and like, there's such another side of higher consciousness that can come with it. And that's just once you've had a feel for that, I mean, it's like, why would I ever go back to that? I don't know. So much more meaningful. Well, Ford, God bless you, my brother. And I always give the guests the last word.
Oh man, words of wisdom.
Or anything you want. It can be absolutely anything.
Well, first off, I love you, Sam. I fucking love talking to you, and I love the space that you hold, and the ideas and perspectives that you bring into my world, and I'm sure the world of other people. And you're doing the Lord's work, my friend, and I'm proud of you. And I think just know thyself. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with others. And live unconditionally and love unconditionally.
Love that, man. And I love you too, man. Like, thank you for taking the time. Again, wouldn't want to spend Christmas any other way. Like, in our circumstances right now, this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Spending time just talking life, love it all. And man, like, there's just certain, there's multiple, I mean, sure, we have multiple people in our life that we're blessed to have. And you're just one of those people, man. Like, when I talk to you, like, in reading, again, I'll continue to plug Moth, and reading your work and seeing the art that you create. It's like, man, like, it's good to have people I know I can talk about absolutely anything with. And you are one of those people, man. Like, I don't have to filter anything. Just to have those safe spaces of communication with someone without judgment is a beautiful thing to have, and it's a gift.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you can always tell me shit. Yeah. I appreciate it too.
Well, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that jazz. Stick around for a quick sec. I'm going to hit the end of the recording. But
All right.
Fanter, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.